Hey everybody, welcome to the history of FMW. This is going to be episode number 31. We're going to start doing our first full year long show recaps. Today we're going to talk about 2004. Now, going into 2004, the FMW guys, they've kind of reunified as the Apache Army. They're embroiled in a feud with 0-1, and that's really the only major storylines going into 2004. As always, I'm joined by Bahu. So, Brett, we're just going to jump right into it. The first show that we've got, and I should mention at this point, all of the FMW guys have pretty much scattered to the seven ends of the earth, and they are just appearing everywhere that you can think. So we're going to start over in All Japan. In All Japan on January 2nd, they ran a Korakuen Hall show, and what was the FMW involvement here?
So this was Mr. Gannosuke and Tetsuhiro Kuroda. Back in December, Kanemura had a lymph infection, so his whole mouth had swollen. And so he wasn't able to wrestle anymore, and him and Kuroda were the All-Asian Tag Team Champions. Because of his injury, Gannosuke pretty much took over the spot for Kanemura, and they won the All-Asian titles in 0-1 on December 25th. So this was kind of the agreement, the All-Asian titles or the All-Japan titles that they had kind of let 0-1 use for a little bit, and while 0-1 had it, they gave it to Kanemura and Kuroda, and then Gannosuke and Kuroda. So this was to set up Gannosuke and Kuroda on January 2nd, taking on Satoshi Kojima and Kaz Hayashi for the All-Asian Tag titles. And Kojima and Hayashi actually are going by their alter ego gimmicks. Kojima is going by the Great Kasuke, which is kind of like Sasuke, but with Kojima's pattern of a mask, so it's like orange and white. And then Kaz Hayashi is going by Shiru, his old Michinoku Pro mask gimmick that he had in the 90s. And so, like I said, this is for the All-Asian Tag titles. This is a really good match. This is kind of the first time where the Apache guys are appearing in All Japan. Well, at least Gannosuke, the Kanemura had competed. Kanemura and Kuroda had competed over the summer of 03, but this is the first time like Gannosuke's working All Japan. And in this match, Gannosuke and Kuroda, they go right after Kojima, right at the start attack. Well, Gannosuke actually trips over a streamer right at the beginning of the match. And like I said, this is a pretty good match. Gannosuke is focusing on ripping Shiru's mask off the entire time. So he pretty much a majority of the match is Gannosuke just trying to rip this mask off of Shiru to reveal Kaz Hayashi. Gannosuke and Kojima, who they had a singles match in 02 in WMF, they're going back at it with each other, chopping each other. Kojima goes for a lariat, and Gannosuke turns it into a Gannosuke clutch. With Kojima barely kicking out. Eventually, Gannosuke is going back to rip off Shiru's mask when Goito comes into the ring to interfere. Goito had started becoming the Apache Army manager, and he had been interfering during the whole 0-1 feud. And so Goito comes in to interfere. Kuroda's holding Kojima as Goito is going to go for a spinning heel kick, but Kojima moves out of the way, and so Goito ends up hitting Kuroda instead, and then Kojima ends up hitting a lariat on Kuroda to get the win for the All-Asian Tag titles. So this was pretty much just part of the agreement. Like, hey, we're going to, All Japan's going, okay, we're going to lend the titles to you. Apache Army, you're through 0-1. You're going to get the titles for a week, but you're getting them right back. And so that was part of the deal so that Kojima and Kaz Hayashi could win the All-Asian Tag titles.
All right, cool. And is Gannosuke, he's really only been wrestling for the WMF groups. Is he still treated with as a big star, or has his star kind of faded a little bit?
Yeah, no, he's still treated as kind of like the number 2 guy at this point. He's below Kanemura. He's probably right there at Kuroda, but he's got enough, he's got more seniority than pretty much everybody. He has an established name, so they don't really try and job him out when they don't need to. And like I said, like Kuroda loses this match. So, Gannosuke really, for his whole career, has always tried to at least stay protected. He'll lose to a Kojima or something like that, a star bigger than him, but anyone kind of at his level or lower, he would always try to avoid jobbing. And if it's a tag match, like I said, a Kuroda or someone else is going to lose instead of him.
All right. So, as we mentioned, the FMW guys, they're feuding with 0-1 mainly. And, at this point, 0-1 is really on fire in a lot of ways. So they had a show on January 9th at Korakuen Hall, if you want to go over that one.
So this one is Mr. Gannosuke, Tetsuhiro Kuroda, and Shoshi Ichimaya, who is I went over a couple episodes ago. He had a gimmick where he pretty much every match that he was in, he dressed up as another wrestler. And so in this match, he dresses up as Shinya Hashimoto. So he comes to the ring with Hashimoto's gear, with the headband and everything, and they take on Shinya Hashimoto, Hirataka Yokoi, and Yoshihiro Sasaki. And so like I said, Ichimaya comes to the ring. Right away, Kuroda knocks down Hashimoto, and that lets Ichimaya, the comedy gimmick, he comes in, he starts giving Hashimoto chops to Hashimoto. Well, Hashimoto's going to get pissed off about that. Like, wait, you're going to pretend to be me, and you're going to do my move on me? No. And so Hashimoto starts just chopping the crap out of Ichimaya as a result. Eventually, Gannosuke and Kuroda are going to end up throwing Hashimoto at Ichimaya, who's going to try the Hashimoto spinning heel kick, but Hashimoto just moves out of the way. He's not going to sell for a comedy gimmick mocking him or anything like that. And eventually Hashimoto just starts kicking the crap out of Ichimaya, and then eventually Gannosuke and Kuroda. Yoshihiro Sasaki, who, he was an FMW dojo guy. He had joined the 0-1 promotion. He has so much fire and so much, he really just has so much passion when it comes to wrestling. So he comes in the ring and he has so much fire. He double spears Gannosuke and Kuroda, but Maya Iwaki, who is a Kaientai Dojo wrestler who was a part of the Apache Army, kind of like a sidekick, he just accompanying them to ringside and stuff. He comes in and he ends up hitting Yoshihiro Sasaki with a chair, and that sets up Kuroda to get the lariat on Yoshihiro Sasaki for the Apache Army win. And that is another aspect of the Apache Army. They're kind of adding in smaller indie guys, from Kaientai Dojo, from Big Japan. They're just kind of randomly showing up to accompany or appear in matches and stuff. They're kind of becoming more bringing in more indie guys than and not just being a FMW only group.
So I have a quick question. So eventually Apache Army does become a full-blown company. Was Kanemura's goal always to create a full company?
Not right away. I mean, at this point, it's Fuyuki Army is the promotion. They have more sponsors and everything like that. So it's an easier way, and Kanemura is running the promotion pretty much. I may mention, Kanemura and Goito are booking the promotion, and they're using Fuyuki's widows, the money that Fuyuki had saved up prior to his death, and they also had sponsors and everything. So at this time, it is not the plan of having a promotion. It is the Apache Army is a part of the group of Fuyuki Army, because the Fuyuki Army right now, hey, why look for another promotion or start a promotion when, this is our home? And right now, this is Fuyuki's promotion pretty much, even though Fuyuki has passed on right now. So at the moment, it is not, the plan right now is not to start his own promotion.
All right. So that's going to take us now to the Fuyuki Army show on January 14th.
So this was I talked about last episode how September, October, and December, 3 shows were hot. They were awesome shows. They were all taped. But the December show, and it was the Apache versus 0-1 each time, and by the end it was kind of like, okay, there's not as much interest. Like, okay, 0-1's already established, they're gonna win now that they've given the Apache the first couple wins, and now 0-1's winning every time. And by the 3rd show in December, even though it was a great match, it was kind of the attendance had started dropping. The interest wasn't as the interest had already peaked and it was starting to decline. So for this show, they announced 1,500 fans, which is around what they were drawing for the December show, kind of like I said, past the peak. But they don't have, this show doesn't get television. Samurai doesn't air it, so this show never airs or anything like that. But some of the matches are Mr. Gannosuke the returning Kentaro, Kanemura, and Hito. And now Kanemura is covered completely. He had this bandage just covering his face completely because of his lymph infection. I may mention, last episode, how he had gotten someone else's blood in his body, in his bloodstream and everything, having these death matches. And it was all these germs from the other person's blood had gotten in his body, and he nearly died as a result of this. And so he is coming back early. He shouldn't be. He's not ready to come back. And like I said, he has just his whole face covered because of all the swelling on his jawline because of the illness. So it's the Apache Army. They're taking on the 0-1 team of Tetsuhito Takaiwa, Jun Kasai, and Yoshihito Sasaki. And Gannosuke and Takaiwa get into a chop battle during this match. And but eventually Gannosuke gets a Fire Thunder on Sasaki. Kanemura ends up hitting a Senton Splash, and then Kanemura hits a Thunder Fire Powerbomb on Sasaki to get the win. And then in the main event, Masato Tanaka takes on Tetsuhiro Kuroda. And they always have a really good match. Kuroda and Tanaka have been working together since they both started in FMW in 1993, and they had some really classic matches. And like I said, this wasn't taped, so I never actually saw this match. But Tanaka ends up getting the win over Kuroda with an elbow smash, and then afterwards Kanemura comes to the ring and he stare downs Tanaka. So that's it's looking like Tanaka and Kanemura coming away are actually going to start joining together. There's some respect there, and they're going to start switching things around. And so, like I said, it's just kind of this tease of Tanaka and Kanemura might be joining together. And like I said, Tanaka had been with the 0-1 throughout the last couple months and feuding with them, and now they want to kind of spice things up here. And this was the beginning of that.
All right, cool. So then that's going to lead into the 0-1 show on January 19th.
Okay, so yeah, this show happened in Takamatsu. It was Kentaro Kanemura and Tetsuhiro Kuroda against Shinya Hashimoto and Tatsuhito Takaiwa. In this match, Takaiwa is setting up Kanemura and to hit the Death Valley Bomb, which is Takaiwa's finish, but Gannosuke ends up coming to the ring and distracting the referee. Well, as a result, Takaiwa can't get the win because the referee's being distracted. Well, Takaiwa now has to go for a power bomb, but on Kuroda instead. But Kuroda would end up hitting him with a chair, and Kanemura would end up rolling up Takaiwa for the win. So it's kind of the Apache Army gets the win over interference. Gannosuke's distracting the referee, and Kanemura, like I said, ends up picking up kind of like a fluke win over Takaiwa.
All right, now after this show, so on January 20th, you reported at the time that Kanemura, he had to go back into the hospital.
Yeah, so he wasn't ready to He wasn't ready to ever leave the hospital. The doctors had not given him permission to go back into the ring, and so when they found out, because of this, like I said, this was a very serious illness that he had. He couldn't just go back into the ring. They had not cleared him or anything like that, and so they forced him to stay in the hospital for 20 days as a result. So Kanemura cannot travel, cannot go. No, he has to live in the hospital for 20 days. So he's off all upcoming shows as a result. Because he was not supposed to be wrestling. He was not cleared. He was not ready. And like I said, on the January 14th show, his whole face is just covered. He knew he wasn't ready, but he didn't want to miss another Apache or another Fuyuki Army show. He felt like he was the top draw, the top sell. I can't miss these shows, even though I'm seriously ill. And like I said, he told me, I almost died from this.
Now, is he losing any guaranteed money from any of these contracts?
He would be missing on like any 0-1 show that he would miss. He's not getting paid. But with the Fuyuki Army, I'm sure he's getting some pay. But it's his responsibility, feeling like he's the ace, feeling like he's the top guy. I can't miss these shows. These shows are the attendance are going down. And like I said, that Fuyuki Army show on December 5th, 2003, Kanemura wasn't on it, and that was the first real big dip right there. And then you had this show, which, okay, Kanemura returns, but he's not in any, like, he's just in the semi-main event because he can't really, like, wrestle a main event style match or anything like that. And, you know, that's another hit. And, I mean, we'll go over here later where, hey, as a result, these shows, you know, these take a toll because they are not financially successful enough to keep the promotion going for Koto Fuyuki's widow, who's not that interested in, you know, she doesn't know that much about wrestling. All she knows is, hey, this was all the money my husband saved up for this promotion, and it's draining. You know, these shows, they don't have enough money to tour or anything like that. They can run Korakuen Hall, and okay, they might have been hitting even or making a little bit of money a couple months ago or at the start, but now when you're drawing 1,500, which probably isn't really 1,500, you're starting to lose money as a result, and as a result, you know, like I said, when you have someone that's doesn't love wrestling in charge, they're going to see losing money as, no, I'm not going to keep doing this. So this was kind of out of fear of like, I need to do what I can to keep this promotion going.
Awesome. Okay. So, going on to February, some WMF news. So they ran a show on February 11th with a big announcement attached to it.
So, yeah, prior to the show, Tetsuya Yamada had made an announcement about WMF, and everyone kind of took it as WMF is closing. WMF, this is the last show. That was the rumor. That was the talk. Like, hey, and we talked about it last episode. You know, back in July, there was a show that just did horrible. They only announced 1,000 fans, and they probably were lying about that. You know, they toured and were only announcing 100 or 200 fans, so they gave up on touring. They ran a different Ariake show, which is an 1,800-seat building, and they announced 500. Just stuff like that, where, like, obviously this promotion is losing money, bleeding money. But they have Gannosuke got a sponsor that had of a computer company that had a lot of money to back them up and everything, so they could afford to lose this money to a certain point. But now Yamada is going, wait, okay, it's been over a year, and I'm just seeing money loss. That's all I'm seeing. And so, like I said, there's all this talk of he's closing WMF, WMF is going down. Well, Yamada sends out a press release where he goes, I want to talk about what's being reported in the newspapers. It is a fact that February 11th may be WMF's last show. There is no performance past February 11th. The organizational management is very difficult place. Results have not been achieved in this trial and error method. If the profit does not go up, then WMF will no longer be in business. Results are everything. I wish the show on the 11th does well. I do not want this to be WMF's last show. We will do our best so that we can book another show after February 11th. Please lend your power, aka please come to the show. So, you know, this is just pretty much him going, I'm done losing money. Things are going to have to change. You know, if things don't, pretty much here's the last Hail Mary if you want WMF to stay the same status as it has been, which is a promotion that's able to run Korakuen Hall and is able to book, you know, a Satoshi Kojima or Masato Tanaka, someone, you know, a top name to main event Korakuen Hall, bring in a Jinsei Shinzaki, you know, just a top name. And so this was the last chance for WMF to be able to be like a legitimate promotion.
All right. So, okay. So do you want to go over the show then?
Yeah. So they end up running on February 11th, and they end up announcing 1,500 fans. So it's probably, you know, around that area of the Fuyuki Army, which, I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not good, and it's probably, you know, not what they were hoping. And they end up bringing in you know, a big name for this show in Kinsuke Sasaki to main event the show. But some matches on this show, some undercard matches. The WMF Junior Heavyweight title, which I talked about last episode, that was the only title about the promotion ever created. Tomoya Hadashi had won it, and then he ended up dropping it to Jintaro at a Kaientai Dojo show. Well, now Jintaro is defending it against Onryo. And they have, I mean, it's a good match, and Onryo ends up missing a 450 Firebird Splash. Jintaro ends up going for a super kick, but he misses it, and Onryo ends up putting an Onryo clutch into Jintaro, but then eventually, you know, Jintaro kicks out. Well, then Onryo turns it into a 6-6 lock, which is going to be his new finisher, which is a crossface. So Onryo wins the Junior Heavyweight title, and that title will actually be brought back back a couple years later, but for the time being, it's like, oh, Onryo's the last champion. Then there's a match. So Kanemura originally was supposed to be in the semi-main event of the show against Garuda. Well, because of the illness and everything, Kanemura being in the hospital, he had actually gotten out in time, but it was just kind of like, no, we didn't know if he was going to be able to make it, if he's up for it. So Kanemura ends up just not appearing on this show. As a result, the lineup gets changed up a little, and it's Seiji Ikeda versus Garuda. And it's actually a really good thing that Kanemura wasn't in this match, because he probably would have beat the crap out of Garuda for being so piss poor in this match. This is one of the worst matches. It's just, I remember watching it and just like, oh my goodness, Garuda, what the hell has happened to you? And it might be, he had came back from injury, a neck injury back in December, and he might have not have just been ready, but this is just a poor performance from Garuda. Garuda ends up throwing, trying for the worst Firebird splash ever. Like, he misses the Firebird splash pretty much, and not on purpose too. It wasn't like Ikeda moved out of the way. He literally just he does the Firebird splash, and it doesn't even look like it phases Ikeda because of just how poor of a landing he stuck it. And then he follows that up with probably the worst power bomb you've ever seen also. And then Garuda, the finishing spot is Garuda throws Ikeda into the ropes, and Ikeda lightly shoulder tackles him, and Garuda just falls to the ground, and then Ikeda picks him up and hits a clothesline and gets the win. Like, that was just back to back to back horrible spots. And I remember just going, oh my goodness, Garuda, like, you either need to retire or you need to sit out for a lot longer, because this was just a poor performance. And like I said, it's probably a good thing that it was against Ikeda, who's a younger guy, than it would have been a Kanemura, who 10 years experience, and and you show that kind of crap offense against him. So this was just a horrible match. And then the main event is Kinsuke Sasaki against Mr. Gannosuke. And by the way, this did air on Samurai, but it was only one of those 1 hour shows, so only like the top matches get shown. They don't show the undercard. And so like I said, Mr. Gannosuke is in the main event instead of Mama Sasaki here, with, this being the possible last match of WMF. Gannosuke booked himself in the main event instead of Mama Sasaki, the ace. And I think the thought was, okay, Mama just faced Tenryu in December, lost to him. We're not going to just go and just run a month and a half later with now Mammoth losing to Kinsuke Sasaki. Now instead it's going to be Gannosuke against Kinsuke Sasaki. And Kinsuke Sasaki, he respects Gannosuke more than Onita. Like, Sasaki, going back to that 99 exploding death match, he didn't even want to sell for for Onita. But at least Gannosuke, has a legitimate background as a wrestler, so Sasaki will sell for him, but it's not like he's going to lose to him or anything. But, they go through a top exchange where they just start slapping each chest. This is the same year also the famous, the famous Kinsuke Sasaki Kenta Kobashi match. So Kinsuke Sasaki was kind of in a chop exchange type, where it got over. That was a real popular spot at the time. Gannosuke ends up going low to end the chop exchange. And then Gannosuke ends up debuting the new Scorpion Deathlock finisher. Gannosuke was a big Riki Choshu fan at the time, or actually, sorry, growing up, Riki Choshu was Gannosuke's favorite wrestler, and so he idolized Riki Choshu. And now with facing Kinsuke Sasaki being Choshu's student, he uses the Choshu Scorpion Deathlock, and then he ends up, this is, like I said, the kind of beginning. Gannosuke would end up using more and more Choshu offense as the years go by. But they end up brawling in the crowd. Kinsuke Sasaki ends up hitting Gannosuke with the lariat in the crowd. They end up coming back to the ring, and Gannosuke's all bloody from the fight in the crowd. Gannosuke fights back, and he ends up ducking a clothesline from Sasaki, and he suplexes Kinsuke Sasaki. But, and eventually Gannosuke would get a Gannosuke clutch on Sasaki. But the problem with, Gannosuke or just any of the FMW guys is they're all smaller than Kinsuke Sasaki, because Sasaki is just too bulky. So none of this, looks smooth or anything. When Gannosuke does the Gannosuke clutch, it's not like he can do it fast or anything. But anyway, Kinsuke comes back, and he hits a lariat on Gannosuke, and he ends up finishing him off with the Northern Lights suplex to win. And like I said, Kinsuke Sasaki was never going to lose to any FMW FMW guy. If he wasn't going to lose to Onita on Onita's first show in New Japan, he's never going to lose to any other FMW guy. And, he gave Gannosuke some offense, but he's going to win. And afterwards, Gannosuke and Kensuke Sasaki hug. All the WMF guys go to the ring, and they all raise their hands together. And Gannosuke ends up cutting a promo. Mammoth ends up cutting a promo, and then they hug backstage. They hug in the ring and everything. And then, is that the last WMF thing? You're left to believe that this might be the last WMF show. Well, they do announce that that WMF is going to continue, but it's going to take 6 months off, and they're going to reconfigure everything. They're going to kind of see what financially they can do. The changes are going to need to be made after this show, and they show backstage Gannosuke, and he is blubbering. It is so sad. He's with Hayabusa, and Gannosuke is just crying. Just so much, hey, this was his baby. This was something that he really thought this was going to be the new FMW. He was going to carry, he wanted to promote. He left away from the Fuyuki guys and the WAW guys, broke away from FMW to start this promotion to kind of bring, for this to be the new FMW. And it just flopped. It just never caught on. It lost money. And now here we are a year and a half in, and now they're going to need to take 6 months off. And, and like I said, Gannosuke is just blubbering, just so sad and depressing. I've never seen Gannosuke cry like this. And then Hayabusa says some last words backstage, and this would actually be Hayabusa's last ever WMF appearance. We'll go over here in a little while. But they ended up cutting ties with Hayabusa, and it did not go over well with Hayabusa.
Now, I have one quick question, which is, were they? Do you know if the wrestlers were getting paid at the end there?
Yeah, I've never heard anything about WMF never paying. So I would imagine that they got paid what they were expected, but I think that was the reason why Yamada was like, all right, I'm done. I can't pay this much anymore. Like, we are not getting the profits back as a result. And like I said, he's willing to bring in a Kensuke Sasaki. He was willing to bring in a Tenryu, a Tanaka, a Kojima, to help spice these shows up. But hey, they're not, because of bringing in these big names, and they're not bringing in the fans that they, they're not bringing in the money that he's hoping, even with a Tenryu or a Kojima with these big names.
So, okay, that's gonna. Oh, and I've got one more question. When they started, towards the end, when they started using more of the FMW hardcore talent, why did Kanemura never wrestle for them?
No, he did. He came in 2003 when they started up. When they started up working together and everything. They brought in Kanemura for the November 20th show. He brought him in July, actually, and then he worked there, for the Korakuen. He worked the July show, and he worked the Korakuen show in November. So it was 2 shows. And like I said, Kanemura, what the deal was Kanemura was making so much more money. I mean, I talked about last episode how Kanemura says it was like $1 million. I can't imagine it was $1 million. But, he was pretty much saying, Gannosuke only made $300. So obviously Kanemura, I would imagine, made, at least 3 times more than Gannosuke. So that's something that's kind of awkward where, wait, Gannosuke has more seniority, or has about as much seniority as Kanemura. They're about the same level of stars, and, they were interchangeable in FMW as far as star power goes, and now Kanemura and Gannosuke splits away from the Fuyuki group to start his own promotion, hoping that it'll be bigger, and everyone thinking it's going to be bigger than Fuyuki's group. And now here we are a year later, and because of negotiations and everything, Gannosuke is making a lot less to appear on a Fuyuki Army show than Kanemura is. Kanemura is making good money, and again, it has to do with the sponsor willing to pay that much money to bring in a Kanemura, because they're thinking we needed somebody to help draw. Kanemura's an FMW name, maybe he can bring in the old FMW guys that Gannosuke apparently is not.
All right, and then okay, so that's gonna take us to a Fuyuki Army show on February 12th.
So this show again draws 1,500 fans. I don't think it's 50. This show did make tape, but this is kind of depressing show. This is again they announced 1,500. I don't think it's 1,500. It looks half empty. The card isn't that great by any means. So. But it's this. I would imagine this is one of those shows where, like, ooh, this is probably one of the reasons why Fuyuki's widow is going, I don't know if I want to keep promoting, because I'm sure something like this, where they're only running once a month, and when they only announce 1,500, they're probably losing money. But anyway, the opening match actually is Biomonster DNA coming back. They bring back the gimmick of Biomonster DNA. So Gasaku Gashigoer, after in 2002 in WEW, getting a letter from his mother going, I don't want you to be a monster anymore, and he takes the monster helmet off and goes back to being Gasaku. Well, now it's just he's gone back as Biomonster DNA. I think he had been wrestling small indies under Biomonster gimmick. But anyway, so he defeats Dasaku Shimoto in the opening match. And then there's a match, Goemon, Onryo, and Mikami taking on Takashi Sasaki, Jintaro, and Tenomusaku Toba, who was a DDT, boxing gimmick, kind of like Shinjuku Shark, where he's like a very light heavyweight boxer gimmick. But anyway, Onryo ends up getting the win over Jintaro with the double arm suplex in this match. And then Mama Sasaki and Hito take on Ryuji Ito and Miyawaki. Ryuji Ito is the Big Japan Deathmatch Heavyweight Champion at this point. And like I said, Miyawaki is a Kaiendai Dojo, just a mid-carder guy that had been working the Apache Army at this point. And in this match, Hito ends up pinning Hito pins Ito after hitting him with a barbed wire bat, and then he hits him with a pile driver. And this is to set up Hito versus Ito for the Big Japan Deathmatch title in Big Japan at Korakuen Hall on April 29th. So that's why Hito's getting a tag win over Ito. And then in the main event, it's Kentaro Kanemura, Daisuke Sekimoto, and Taka Michinoku against Tetsuhiro Kuroda, Mr. Gannosuke, and Sanzuhiro Takagi. And so they had already announced for the next show on March 19th, Shinya Hashimoto is going to main event the show against the WEW guy for the 1-year anniversary of Koto Fuyuki's passing. And so this match is to determine who gets that match, Kanemura or Kuroda. So, it's a 6-man, Kanemura's team and Kuroda's team. And like I said, whatever team wins, that captain gets to face off against Hashimoto next month. And so Gannosuke and Daisuke Sekimoto, probably this is like their first time ever interacting with each other. They're just chopping the crap out of each other. Gannosuke's no-selling Daisuke Sekimoto until Sekimoto end up hitting a spear on Gannosuke. Gannosuke comes back and hits a hard lariat. Again, it's, Sekimoto is he's only about 5 years, has about 5 years in the business at this point. Gannosuke's 13 years. So Gannosuke, is going to have more, going to be able to beat the crap out of Sekimoto more than Sekimoto is going to be able to beat the crap out of Gannosuke. But anyway, Gannosuke would end up hitting a Fire Thunder, or setting up to hit a Fire Thunder, but Sekimoto would end up getting out and out of the way, and then hitting a German suplex on Gannosuke. But then Gannosuke ends up coming back and hitting a German suplex on Sekimoto. Tetsuhiro Kuroda comes in, and he ends up going up against Kanemura. And so, like I said, this is kind of the to kind of show who gets to fight against Shinya Hashimoto, and Kuroda ends up hitting a Shining Wizard, and then a Lariat to finish off Kanemura. And then, so Kuroda is going to get the match against Shinya Hashimoto the following month. And they actually end up letting, I guess they felt like there wasn't that many fans in the crowd, that they actually start letting the fans in the ring. So a bunch of fans start coming into the ring to celebrate with everyone as they do the Team No Respect dance to end the show. But like I said, this was kind of a depressing looking show. It did, like I said, made tape, so that is one step above the January show, but it's quiet. None of these matches were necessarily over or got heat or anything like that. It was just a show. And Fuyuki Army running once a month, they can't afford to just run just a show, especially a show. We're going to set up a Korakuen Hall show to set up another Korakuen Hall show. That just doesn't fly. That just wasn't good booking. And, I had mentioned last episode how Goito was such a great booker at the beginning, having hot show after hot show and the 0-1 feud against the Apache. Well, now, okay, that's over with. And it's kind of like, what else can we do? And this is kind of like his, okay, this plan, let's go with this. And right now it's not working.
So going on February 29th, 01, they ran their biggest show so far. They ran the Sumo Hall event. What was FMW's involvement and in the Apache Army feud?
Well, I wanted to make mention before that show that Masato Tanaka actually turned on Shinjiro Otani. I made mention how Kanemura and Tanaka in the January 14th show, had gone face to face, and it was like, what's this about? Are they teasing something? Well, yeah, it was because, like I said, Tanaka now is turning on the 01 team, and he's joining not joining the Apache Army, but now he's with the FMW guys and stuff, and he's feuding against Shinjiro Otani. But and Yoshihito Sasaki, who was a former FMW guy, also kind of tags along with Tanaka. But as far as the FMW involvement, Kentaro Kanemura and Tetsuhiro Kuroda and Yoshihito Sasaki, they team up with Steve Corino and CW Anderson. So it's like this FMW ECW group. To take on Naohiro Hoshikawa, Jun Kasai, Akashi Tiger, and Osamu Namaguchi. Namaguchi is like this young boy that I made mention last episode. Kanemura and the Apache Army just beat the crap out of, bloodied him because they got pissed off over the 01 team beating them in October, and they just took this dojo boy that hadn't even debuted yet and just beat the crap and left him bloody. Well, so, Namaguchi at this point is about 3 months into his career. Well, Kanemura's going to welcome him to the business by sending him through a table right away into the match. Takaiwa would end up powerbombing Kanemura through a table. Yoshihiro Sasaki would end up hitting a spear, and then Kuroda would end up hitting a lariat on Tiger Akashi for the win. I mean, this is like an opening match, so it's just kind of get all these guys on the show. By no means is it great, but it got everyone got their spots in and stuff. And then there's Masato Tanaka against the Gladiator, and so this is going to be their first match in 4 years, pretty much since their last ECW match. At this time, and so it's reuniting the feud with Gladiator coming in, and they end up brawling into the crowd right away, and they actually start going up to the second level of Sumo Hall. Well, Masato Tanaka ends up just dropping Mike Awesome off the second level. He just falls down to the first level floor, and Masato Tanaka does a dive, actually, from the second floor onto Mike Awesome off the second floor. And then they end up getting back into the ring, and Mike Awesome ends up hitting an Awesome Bomb on a table that's set up in the corner. Well, then Mike Awesome sets up 2 tables outside the ring, and he's going to do the infamous, Awesome Bomb out of the ring through the table. But now he's using 2 tables instead. And just like Heatwave 98, Masato Tanaka ends up escaping. He ends up picking up Mike Awesome for the Awesome Bomb, and he ends up throwing Awesome through the table instead. So they recreate the spot they did in FMW and ECW all the time. And eventually, Mike Awesome they get back into the ring, and Tanaka hits a rolling elbow and gets the win. And it's this awkward finish because the fans start booing. It was just this finish came out of nowhere, and the match went 11 minutes, and I guess they were expecting longer or something, but it's just this awkward, like, wait, that's it? And the fans boo. So there was a disappointment after this match, especially with just kind of all the hype of Masato Tanaka and Mike Awesome. They're going to go at it again. Well, they did some of their best stuff spots, but, at this point, like I said a couple episodes ago, Mike Awesome's not what he was health-wise, and he can do the best stuff spots, but, for an occasion like this, he definitely let the fans down because they were booing afterwards.
Wow. Okay. So, going forward, let's see. So, one company that we haven't talked about that I'm really curious about was Hustle. Now, Hustle ran a show at the Yokohama Arena on March 7th. We'll probably be talking about them quite a bit over the next couple of years. If you want to let people know what was Hustle, what was the FMW involvement, and if you want to go over this show.
So Hustle was a promotion started up by Dream Stage Entertainment, which was kind of the founder or the backer of Pride. And, I've talked about the last couple episodes how Pride has been this mega hit in Japan, making millions of dollars. It's pretty much the main reason why wrestling in Japan had gone down and declined, because everyone was going to MMA and Pride, and shoot style wrestling, and Pride was the #1 company. In 2002, they had ran a stadium show where they announced over it was either 90,000 or 100,000. I keep forgetting. Back in August 2002, like they are this massive money maker, and so now they're gonna try their hands in wrestling. Make some money in wrestling. And so they get together, they ran a show in January 1st at the Saitama Super Arena, and, they bring in Goldberg, and they bring, they get in the 0-1 guys, and forgetting, who else, but, they're able to afford big-time names and big-time talent and everything. And like I said, so they work a deal with 0-1 to kind of help them get some talent involved and everything. Well, because of the 0-1, because 0-1 working together with the Fuyuki group, the Fuyuki group ends up getting included in Hustle by the second show. And so for this show on March 7th at the Yokohama Arena, they have Kentaro Kanemura, Masato Tanaka, and Tetsuhiro Kuroda against the Gladiator, Sabu, and Just Incredible. So it's an FMW ECW match. And right away, Gladiator, Mike Awesome, hits an awesome bomb on Kanemura off the apron through tables, and neither of the tables break. So this is awkward spot where he sends him through a table, but Kanemura ends up just sliding off the two tables off the stage, pretty much. And then Sabu ends up doing a diving leg drop off the top rope, sending Masato Tanaka through a table. Kentaro Kanemura would end up getting his revenge on Gladiator for that table spot earlier, and he ends up sending Gladiator through a table off the top rope to the outside. Sabu would end up doing an Arabian press with the chair to Kanemura's face, and then Awesome would end up hitting an awesome bomb off the top rope, and Sabu would end up doing a dive over the guardrail on Kuroda. And then eventually Kanemura would end up getting a win over Just Incredible. He would end up hitting him with a cane, and then actually Masato Tanaka would end up hitting a rolling elbow over Credible. So the FMW guys end up getting the win over the ECW guys. And like I said, Hustle has so much money, so everyone's making big time bucks. Just, they're bringing, Mike Awesome's coming to Japan for Hustle, and he'll take that 0-1 booking while he's there, but he's coming for Hustle. Sabu, he's coming in for Hustle. Just Incredible, and they're coming in because of all this money they're making. Big time, $100,000 for a show, just insane money, because Hustle is just like, we got money and we're willing to spend it, and that's what Hustle did at the beginning. They spent money to do what, to try and bring in everybody.
Yeah, and they want to bring in, the Dudley Boys, and this is when Devon got really jacked. I mean, Hustle was fun to watch for quite a while.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's going to go up to the Fuyuki Army show on March 19th.
So, before I talk about the show, I just wanted to make mention that Shinya Hashimoto, he also on that Sumo Hall show, the 0-1 show, he had injured his shoulder in a match against Riki Choshu in the main event. And his shoulder is busted up bad. Like, he needs to tape it up and everything. He's actually goes to see a doctor about it, and the doctor says, you need to take a year off. Like, you need surgery. It's that bad. And Hashimoto goes, I don't want to take that time off. I really want to appear on the Fuyuki show. I made promise that I'm going to appear on the show. I'm the big draw. So Hashimoto tapes up his shoulder to have this match against Tetsuhiro Kuroda. And then also on that day, on February 29th, and the Fuyuki show, this airs on TV, and they actually show Hashimoto visiting Fuyuki's grave on February 29th. And Fuyuki's tombstone has Fuyuki, like, usually there's the standard, just tombstone, the name and everything. And, I may mention how Shoshi Arai, he included the FMW logo on his tombstone. Well, Fuyuki, his tombstone is Fuyuki on it. Like, he has, it's his back towards the tombstone pretty much, with his arms spread out, and he's wearing the Fuyuki purple jacket. And so, Japan, or at least the Japanese, the FMW wrestlers, they went all out on their tombstones. But anyway, so to start the show, everyone's quiet and everything, and they bring out a Kodo Fuyuki size cutout into the ring, and all the fans start coming and presenting flowers in the ring, in memory of Koto Fuyuki. It's been 1 year since he passed away. And then, they show Shinya Hashimoto, Geto come into the ring, Koto Fuyuki's wife and kids. They present yellow flowers into the ring. Koto Fuyuki's wife ends up getting into the ring, and she puts on Koto Fuyuki's purple robe on the cutout, and she gets on the mic, thanking fans and everything for coming to this show. And this show announced 1,800, so there was definitely a spike in attendance for this show. It did a lot better than the depressing 1,500. This place, it's not packed, but it's it's filled up, so it's decent, it's healthy. This was a good show for Fuyuki Army. On the show, Mama Sasaki takes on Chakoba Mukai, and the reason I mention about this match because it's one of the undercard matches. Is actually I watched this match with Chakoba Mukai a couple years ago, about 7 years ago. I went to his bar, and he knew I'm just talking to him. He could tell I was an FMW fan, and so he goes, "Here, let me put on an FMW show for you." And so he puts this DVD in, and it's against him versus Mama Sasaki. And I go, "Oh, well, this isn't FMW. This is Fuyuki Army." And he's like, "Oh, really?" Like, he couldn't even tell the difference of what company that he was working for. He just thought, "Oh, I'm taking on Mammoth. This is an FMW show, I guess." So I thought that was always kind of funny that he confused the two promotions even. But Chakoba ends up in this match. He does a dive outside the ring, and on Mammoth. He's trying everything he can to put away the bigger Mammoth, and he does the Samson clutch, Fuyuki's finish, try and roll Mammoth up, but Mammoth would end up finishing him off with the 29 years old, and we'll go over here in a second, but Chakoba Mukai would end up being out of action for a while after this. One of the mid-card matches is Mr. Gannosuke, Goemon, Masao Urahara, and Miyawaki. They take on Takashi Sasaki, Jintaro, Garuda, and Gasaku. And Gannosuke and Garuda start going right at it with each other, the WMF guys. Garuda ends up doing a tope on Gannosuke. Urahara and Takashi Sasaki, they're brawling all over the place. Gannosuke and Masao Urahara, they get it back into the ring, and they end up doing a praying powerbomb on Takashi Sasaki. Eventually Gasaku would end up being left in the ring alone with Gannosuke, and Gasaku just nowhere near the level of wrestler that Gannosuke is, and they let it be known because Gannosuke finishes them off fast with a lariat and picks up the win. So the Gannosuke, Goemon, Urahara, and Miyawaki team win, but they would end up all brawling afterwards. And then Andrea would end up taking on Taka Michinoku. This is okay to get all these matches. Nothing really is like, oh my goodness, this is this awesome match, really. For almost majority of this year, everything's good, but nothing is like standing out. It's like, oh my goodness, this was a great match. Which FMW, for all the faults and everything at the end, the booking, the storylines and stuff, there were some awesome, great matches. And there were some great matches in WEW and WMF. But around this time period, the level of just like, wow, this is like a 4.5-star match or something like that. It's it doesn't happen anymore for some reason. But anyway, so Anryo and Taka Michinoku. Taka would try for an Asai moonsault, but Anryo ended up grabbing his leg and throwing him off the apron, and then Anryo gets back in the ring and hits a tope con hilo, and then eventually Anryo would end up hitting a flying drop kick, and he delivers a Falcon Arrow, but can't put Taka away, and then eventually Taka would end up hitting a super kick and making Anryo tap out to the crossface. And then in the semi-main event, it's the All-Asian Tag Titles. I mention, Kojima and Kaza Hayashi had won the All-Asian Tag Titles back in January. Well, now they're going to defend the titles against Kanemura and Hito, the Great Kosuke and Shiru, the masked Kojima and Hayashi. Well, around this match, the crowd is so alive and so into it. The crowd is so hot, like... I talked about February and how it was kind of depressing and quiet and kind of empty. And, this show, it wasn't, sold out, but it's a healthy crowd. And when this match happens, it's hot. Kojima ends up doing a spine buster on and the crowd is just booing him right away. Loud, passionate booing. Like, this fan base is so passionate for this show. Kanemura would end up quickly unmasking Kosuke to obviously reveal Kojima. And so Kanemura and Kojima end up start brawling outside the ring as Hito tries to unmask Shiru. Well, Kanemura and Kojima are brawling all over the outside and stuff. Well, Kanemura ends up blooding up Kojima, and then eventually smashing a table into Kojima's crotch. And he does, where he takes a chair and smashes the table into Kojima's crotch in the corner. And then Kanemura would end up setting a table up in the turnbuckle, and he picks up Shiru to try and do the suplex. Off the table through another table, a spot that he'd been doing a lot over the last year. Well, he throws, he suplexes Hayashi, and the table does not break at all. Around this time period, Kojima now is that cut is all over his face. He's bleeding completely all over his face. And Hito tries to come in, and he ends up missing a moonsault on Kojima to interfere. Shiru would end up suplexing Hito, and then Kojima ends up hitting a lariat on Hito for the win. And the crowd is just booing so loudly that the All Japan team has won. They wanted so badly that the Fuyuki Army team to win, the Apache Army. But I don't know. Just this show at least was kind of back to what September and October were, and even more so, but with how passionate the fan base was, how much they wanted the Apache Army to win. And then in the main event, they do this video package beforehand with Kuroda. And it's really awesome because they show Kuroda backstage about to enter the ring, about to come out to into Korakuen Hall, and they are chanting Kuroda so loudly and passionately. It's so awesome because, I don't think Kuroda's ever been more over than this night because of just how badly the fans wanted the WEW, Fuyuki Army, Apache Army guys to win, but so they are so into this right away. Kuroda comes out, and they chant so loud to his theme song. Anyway, the match is obviously against Shinya Hashimoto, and like I said, his shoulder is completely covered up at this point. Kuroda and him end up Hashimoto brawl into the crowd. Kuroda does his lariat run in the crowd, but he ends up getting met with a Shinya Hashimoto kick. Eventually, Kuroda would end up hitting the lariat on Hashimoto. And then Kuroda ends up hitting this lariat, and then he does this Tekken Buster, and the crowd is so loud. They chant, because Kuroda would always go Tekken Cutter. Sorry, Tekken Cutter. Kuroda would always do the Tekken Cutter chant when he would do this move, which is dropping the guy's face in the corner at the turnbuckle, and the crowd is just so loud and passionate. I don't know. Like I said, this is probably more passionate than anything post Onita at this point because of just how much the fans are so into this. Anyway, Hashimoto and Kuroda, they end up doing this spot where Kuroda is trying for a lariat. He does this lariat, but he hits this lariat on Hashimoto, and they show a close-up of Shinya Hashimoto's face waiting for it. And it's really awesome because you just see Hashimoto waiting for the impact. But Hashimoto would end up doing a kick that sends Kuroda kicks him so hard that Kuroda ends up just flying across the ring pretty much. And then eventually Hashimoto would end up picking up Kuroda and hitting a jumping DDT for the win. So like I said, this isn't by any means this awesome match because of what was going on in the ring, but because of how passionate the crowd is. This is probably the top match of 2004 in this world of the FMW guys because of how passionate the crowd was. But anyway, so the Apache Army afterwards, they come to the ring. Fuyuki joins them. They bring back the Fuyuki cutouts, and then Fuyuki does the speech to the fans, and everybody's chanting for Fuyuki, loud Fuyuki chants, and she announces that there's going to be a Kawasaki Stadium show on May 5th for the Fuyuki Army, and Then at the end, everyone does the Team No Respect dance, and they pick up Fuyuki's daughter. Saku and Kanemura pick up Fuyuki's daughters and put them on their shoulders, and everyone's doing the Team No Respect dance. And then Koto Fuyuki's music plays. Pretty much like one last time, or at Korakuen Hall, and they end up all walking out, and the Fuyuki cutout is left in the ring as the show ends. So this was a really cool show. Like I said, nothing like, oh my goodness, this was a great match, but two really hot matches that made this show really worthwhile to check out. And I mean, this show is not really remembered by any means, but this crowd should always be remembered because nothing was ever this hot afterwards or before.
All right. So, okay, next up now, in April, there was a couple incidents where Chocoball Mukai was arrested. What happened with this?
So the first time he got arrested was on March 25th. So this was like 6 days after the Korakuen Hall show. He actually got arrested for public obscenity. What happened was he filmed, he was still doing porn at this time. And what he did was, he had stopped doing it for a while during FMW, but after FMW closed, or when his full-time job, and okay, he'll do the Fuyuki Army and wrestle once a month, and hey, he was even doing battle art stuff, and so he got back into porn, doing porn regularly to make a living, and so he, a bartender pretty much in Shinjuku, was like, hey, film this porno at my place. You can, come on, I'll pay you money. So he does that. Well, him and this other actress, Emi Kuroda, they're doing a porno for this guy in his bar, pretty much, and people are at this bar, and next thing, these people are just drinking, and they see these people having sex. Well, they call the cops. The cops come by, and they go, what the hell's going on? Well, there's no paperwork. No paperwork was filed, so they end up getting arrested as a result. And Chocoball Mukai would end up spending 27 days in jail as a result because of no paperwork was ever filed. You just can't be having sex in a bar in public and with people watching and stuff, and be filming it for a porn. But anyway, like I said, so he spent 27 days in jail, and IWA Japan President Asano would actually end up bailing him out. The bail was actually $40,000, and so Mukai would end up getting out. But he missed the next month's show at Fuyuki Army as a result because of being in jail.
Bunch of narcs at that bar. All right.
Well, I'll go over here in a second. Also, it's even more. It's what's even crappier is, like I said, the guy wanted him. Hey, come to my bar. It wasn't like because the cops were led to leave. Oh, they just decided to do a porn, with no one knowing. But the bartender was the one going, hey, come to my bar and let's film it. So he actually set them up and screwed them over.
Wow. Okay. So let's see. The next show is going to be Fuyuki Army on April 8th.
So, this show would end up doing an announced crowd of 1,600, so it's a little bit better than what the 1,500 shows have been doing. The January and February is a little better. It's a little healthier. It made TV. It's by no means empty, but it's not what March was. So they announced 1,600 fans. Shinjuku Shark would end up replacing Chocoball Mukai for this show against Yuki Ishikawa. I talked about last episode how Chocoball and Ishikawa kind of had formed this rivalry friendship, student teacher relationship, because Chocoball was really kind of trying to embrace the battle art style. He wanted to, he had a kind of a shoot fight, kickboxing style background. He kind of wanted to use that in his matches. Well, Yuki Ishikawa is like the master of the mixed martial arts wrestling kind of shoot style wrestling training. But anyway, so Shinjuku Shark, who's just this skinny boxer guy from FMW, he replaced him, and this match is just nothing. It's quiet, and Yuki Ishikawa ends up defeating him in like 7 minutes. Mr. Gannosuke ends up taking Mr. Gannosuke takes on Jintaro. So this match is kind of promoted as like, hey, it's a mid-card match, but this is going to be a good match. You got two guys. Gannosuke is still a really good worker. Jintaro is the prime of his career as far as what he's willing to do, and he's had a couple years of being a great worker. And Jintaro obviously he's got his look from Bret Hart and he's got his offense from Shawn Michaels. But so Jintaro right away meets Gannosuke with a kick right to the face before the match even starts, and then he does a plancha outside the ring. The finishing sequence is Jintaro is going to set up for the flying elbow drop, like I said, like Shawn Michaels move, and then he does the flying elbow drop, and then he's setting up for the sweet chin music on Gannosuke, and then he goes up for a shooting star press. Well, he ends up missing it, and Gannosuke ends up hitting a lariat and then finishing Jintaro off with a Fire Thunder to get the win. And then the semi-main event is Taka Michinoku and Hito against Ryuji Ito and Daisuke Sekimoto. This is a Big Japan versus Apache match. It's actually a tables match. And again, like I said, Hito at the end of the month, he's going to challenge for the Big Japan deathmatch title. Well, Ryuji Ito ends up using a barbed wire bat, and he cuts open Hito right away. So Hito's bleeding during this match. Hito tries to pile drive Sekimoto through the table, but Ito ends up coming off the top rope to make the save. Like I said, you pile drive the guy through the table, you win. Ryuji Ito would end up setting up Hito for a dragon splash through the table, but Hito ends up moving off the table to save himself. And then eventually Hito would set up Ito for a pile driver, and Taka Michinoku would come off the top to spike Ito through the table with the pile driver. So Hito and Taka Michinoku would win. And again, this is just to continue. They didn't want Ito to lose, to be pinned again by Hito, but they wanted to continue to set up the Big Japan Deathmatch title match in April. And then in the main event, it's Kentaro Kanemura, Jado, and Geto against Tetsuhiro Kuroda. So it's going to be a handicap match. And this is really just like to establish, okay, it's kind of going back to what WEW was doing, where Kuroda's the face, Kanemura's the heel. They're splitting up the group because, okay, we can only have them team up so much, and we need them to fight again. And just with such a thin roster, not only a thin roster, but just like with the main event guys, you just can only do so much. And, you talked about Gannosuke. Well, yeah, you could probably have Gannosuke, but Gannosuke doesn't want to just come in to job to Kuroda, in a match. And he's like the only other top main event guy that you could like really main event with and stuff. It's Kuroda, Gannosuke, and Kanemura. And like I said, Gannosuke is not going to want to just come in just to job to Kuroda or anything. So you can't even really use Gannosuke at this point in a main event situation. So all you can really do is Kuroda and Kanemura. Well, you don't want to just do Kanemura and Kuroda again, so let's just set it, and have Kuroda lose after losing to Hashimoto, and he's got some momentum. So let's make this a handicap match where you add in Jado and Geto. I mean, there really was no explanation. It wasn't like a punishment or anything on why this was a handicap match, but anyway. Right away, Kanemura brings Kuroda into the crowd, and he charges at Kuroda, but Kuroda ends up hitting him with a lariat instead. Jado and Geto pretty much control most of this match, just beating on Kuroda for majority of it before Goito, the Apache Army manager who's been helping them out throughout this time, and you think, he's with Kanemura. He's been helping Kanemura out against the 0-1 guys all these months and interfering for him. Well, he comes to the ring, and Kanemura lays Kuroda down, and it looks like Goito is going to hit the frog splash on Kuroda, but instead Goito comes off the top rope and he hits a drop kick on Kanemura. So it's like Goito has now turned on Kanemura. He's siding with Kuroda on the face, with the faces and stuff. Even it's this blurry line also between face and heel, because a month ago the crowd was also passionately cheering for Kanemura, but again, it was just such a thin roster. This is what they feel like they got to do. Anyway, Geto ends up grabbing Goito for turning on him, and Jado ends up hitting a lariat on Goito to sit and get him out of that match. And then Kuroda, he would actually, almost get the win with the Samson clutch, but eventually, they end up laying Kuroda out. They would end up hitting a super power bomb on Kuroda. Geto would hit a Geto splash, frog splash on Kuroda, and then eventually Kanemura would end up hitting the senton splash on Kuroda, and so Kanemura, Jado, and Geto would end up getting the win. And afterwards, Kuroda cuts a promo, and so this was not bad, but it wasn't what Fuyuki Army needed. This is, the quality of the matches aren't anything great. It's just a far cry from what September, October, December, there's those hot shows where, and even last month where, like I said, the matches weren't that great, but the crowd was so hot. And again, we're just kind of going back to, okay, this is just a normal show, this is just an indie show pretty much with okay crowd and okay heat, nothing special or anything like that. And like I said, Fuyuki Army at this point needs to be special.
So the next news piece is Ryuji Ito and Nikon Lee got married around this time.
Yeah, so Occupation of Indies, which was a highlight show, which still airs today in Samurai. It had been on the air for about a year and a half or so. They came up to Nikon Lee and they were like, we want to do this interview special on the fact that you're engaged with Ryuji Ito. And so they're doing an interview with her outside when, I think it was outside like the Big Japan Dojo. And, that was the kind of going to be the piece where, hey, they met at the Big Japan Dojo and they fell in love and now they're engaged and everything. Well, Nikon Lee's doing the interview when Abdullah Kobayashi comes up from behind and he ends up putting a blindfold over Nikon Lee's face. And he takes her and he begins walking her to the car. And they end up driving her with a blindfold on to a dress store. And so they take her to the dress store. They're walking her, into the store and everything. And Ryuji Ito is there and he's got his tuxedo on. And Ito removes the blindfold and shows that they're at a wedding store. And he goes, I want you to pick your wedding dress now. We're getting married right now. And so she's like starts crying and everything, and she picks her dress out, and they're gonna get married today, and they end up actually she picks her dress out, and they're taking pictures and stuff, and then the Big Japan staff comes out, and it's Daiko Kubo, Benkei, Shadow WX, Daisuke Sakamoto, Jackie Numasawa, Katsumasa Inoue, and Eiji Tasaka, the Big Japan president. They all come out, and they don't actually show the wedding or anything, but they show, hey, like they got married. Nikon Lee didn't even know she was getting married that day, type thing. It's a really cool scene. Like I said, you can see Nikon Lee crying throughout, and they take group pictures together also.
I always thought it was so It had to have been hard to ref his matches and seeing all the punishment he took.
Yeah, because even like in that package, the video package, like they show, he's in these bloody matches, like almost, like right after they're married and stuff, and she's the one counting the three, for him and against him and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but actually, Yoshihisa Uto just married Risa. And, they're a deathmatch couple, so they're...
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, they just announced it today. Apparently they got married on the 31st, and they just announced it. So anyway, so that's going to take us to... we haven't talked much about them, so that's going to take us to World Japan. This is kind of... this was a company that Onita was working for a little while. What happened here?
Yeah, so... Riki Choshu, we talked about it early 2003, a big financial backer had came in and was willing to spend a lot of money for, they brought in the Road Warriors, and this was going to be Riki Choshu, who had just left New Japan. His promotion, he's a big draw, he's a big name. Him being the big star, obviously that's going to draw attention and draw fans and be a big hit. Well, it wasn't. The shows were horrible. It was losing money. So at this point, the promotion has completely downsized to where, they're not going to run Yokohama Arena anymore. They're going to run, they'll run Korakuen every so often. It's kind of like it's pretty much just an independent promotion at this point. And they, Kanemura at this point, 0-1, like that feud's just kind of over with at this point. Tanaka even is joined the Kanemura group and everything. So you can't even really feud with 0-1, and it's just this feud that's overdone. Well, the whole point of Apache Army was, we're going to feud against the big promotions. Well, like I said, World Japan was still kind of known, was pretty much an indie at this point, but it still has, just a year ago, it was running Yokohama Arena, still running big shows, and it has Riki Choshu as the main guy. So you can't, when you think Riki Choshu, you don't think independent wrestler, especially in 2004. So it still had its kind of a name value. So the Apache Army has kind of declared that they're going to go to war against World Japan now going forward. They're going to work a program against Riki Choshu. So on April 25th at the World Japan show at the Yokohama Red Brick Warehouse, Kanemura takes on Takashi Uwano, who was... pretty much a jobber in World Japan. I think he'd been around a couple years, but by no means was he any name value or anything like that. And Kanemura just ends up bloodying up Uwano right away and just pins him pretty much in a squash. He pins him with the Thunderfire Powerbomb, and he's just beating the crap out of Uwano afterwards. Well, Ichiro Yaguchi, who was working World Japan at this time, he comes in and starts going after Kanemura to try and break him off of beating up Uwano. Well, then Tomohiro Ishii comes in and he attacks Kanemura, and then all the Apache Army wrestlers come into the ring, and they all make the save for Kanemura. It's this big brawl and everything, and Kanemura gets on the mic and goes, "I want Riki Choshu for May 5th at the Kawasaki Stadium." So that's supposed to set up Kanemura and Choshu at Kawasaki Stadium. We'll go over here in a second. Obviously, there's some politics involved in this match and just issues, but that's, right now that's the plan. Is Kanemura's going to and Apache Army, they're going to work with World Japan and Riki Choshu.
Now, one thing that, so coming up is going to be, Fuyuki Army is going to carry on the May 5th Kawasaki show legacy that FMW started. At this moment, what is the card for that May 5th show?
Yeah, so there was big-time issues all the way around. So originally, it was booked as Kanemura and Hito against Shinya Hashimoto and Riki Choshu. And, okay, like, those are two big names, and I remember when I saw that card, like, okay, I guess that'll draw somewhat, two big names against Kanemura, but obviously, like, they're going to get squashed. Like, who's even going to take the offense here? And then, and this is just a couple days prior. Like, this was this card was announced very late. So then, like, the next day or two, it's announced that Shinya Hashimoto goes, "I'm dropping out. My shoulder's busted up. I can't wrestle. I'm not going to be on the show." Well, then it's like, oh crap. What are we going to do? And so afterwards, then they announced that Satoshi Kojima versus Tetsuhiro Kuroda is going to main event the show. Hey, at least let's end the show with a good match, which I'm sure, it was a good match, but by no means, I remember at the time, like, this can't main event Kawasaki Stadium. This match has already happened, like, at like a 1,800 seat building, and wasn't even the main event, like at in Osaka, the Osaka Preferential Gym number 2, like, and it didn't even main event. So how is this going to main event Kawasaki Stadium? Like, this show is going to bomb with that, and they kind of realized that, and so what they ended up doing was, they switched the main event again to Kanemura and Hito against Riki Choshu and Tomohiro Ishii. So it's going to be the Apache versus World Japan. That's going to be the main event. Satoshi Kojima versus Tetsuhiro Kuroda. That's going to be the semi-main event. And then they got Shinya Hashimoto to agree to be a part of the show. He wasn't going to be in the main event. He was going to take on Mama Sasaki instead, third from the top, where he wasn't going to be pressured to, like, put on this great performance in a big stadium or anything like that. So the card was just switched all around, and even at the end of the day, like, that's not this great show, like, that's not this great headlining show that's going to, sell out Kawasaki Stadium. Kawasaki Stadium probably can fit 20,000 people. It's, it's a huge area, and this lineup is looking pretty weak going into May 5th when, and on top of that, they're not even putting any money in towards exploding barbed wire or anything. Like, this is going to be just a straight match. They did that on May 5th, 2002, but at least they had Onita, and they had Onita and Sasuke against Hashimoto and Otani. At least, like, that's some, like, dream match. This isn't a dream match, and the attendance would be hurt as a result.
All right, going on. IWA ran a show. We haven't done a show for them in a while. They ran a show on May 4th.
So yeah, I wanted to talk about the IWA Japan show because they're back to running Korakuen Hall every so often, and around this time period, Asano is in charge, and he's bringing in a bunch of the old American wrestlers around this time period. Jim Duggan was on this, Road Warrior Animal, Kamala, Mike Rotundo's on this show. So this match, they have Chocobo Mukai versus Nozomi Takasako. That's a very small female wrestler. Chocobo now he has his loyalty to Asano. Asano bailed him out of jail just a little while ago, a couple of days ago. So he's gonna work for IWA Japan. Like he completely is loyal to him at this point, and would pretty much the Fuyuki show is going to be the next day, but afterwards he's pretty much done with Fuyuki Army after that. But he's now going to work IWA Japan. So he has this match against this female wrestler, and Kamala ends up interfering against Chocoball, and he ends up doing a splash on Chocoball Chocoball's doing a Boston Crab on her, and Kamala interferes, and he ends up doing a splash on him. And so she would end up rolling up Chocoball for the win. So I guess this is one of those, hey, I just gave you $40,000. You're putting over my talent, which, like I said, a girl that was probably less than 5 feet tall. But the main event is Barry Windham, Mike Rotundo, and Ryo Miyake against Animal, Jim Duggan, and Kaizo Matsuda. So there's two IWA Japan guys and 4 foreigners. This was Mike Rotundo's retirement match. He would end up pinning Jim Duggan in like the worst roll-up you've ever seen for the win. He did end up doing a retirement speech, and like I said, they would keep bringing in the American talent here for like the next year or so. But this was, again, just to kind of Chocoball is now a part of the IWA Japan promotion.
All right, and that's going to take us to the big May 5th Kawasaki Stadium show that's going to be run by Fuyuki Army.
I may mention how just the lineup was changed completely all the time, days prior to that. Well, on top of everything, the weather is horrible. It had been raining in Kawasaki the entire day, and I mean, it did stop by the evening, but now it's chilly. It's 40-something degrees. Everyone's in jackets. Everyone's in coats and huddled up and stuff. It's cold. It's been raining all day. So that killed any possibility of a walk-up. So now as a result, they ended up announcing 8,250 fans. And now, again, last year they announced 18,000. And it wasn't a sellout either. So this, like I said, this probably fills out 20,000 people, and they drew, probably less than 8,000 really. But there are rows and rows of empty chairs like that. This is not a show ready for Kawasaki Stadium, and just for whatever reason, the Apache Army just did not. And Goito is a great booker, and Kanemura, I have faith in him to do a good job, and this show just wasn't what the fans wanted to see on May 5th. The theme really for this show was FMW versus New Japan. Going back to September 23rd, 1991, FMW ran the very first Kawasaki Stadium show. Well, they went head-to-head up against the Yokohama Arena show that New Japan ran. And, FMW drew over 30,000 for Onita versus Goto. So it was kind of like, hey, look, even against competition, FMW, this small little indie, can draw. And so the theme of this is just a bunch of New Japan versus FMW guys. Pretty much the top matches or so. But anyway, Sabu is in Japan at this time period. He's going to work the Hustle show in the next couple days, so they bring him in. He takes on Jun Kasai, and Jun Kasai does a drop kick off the top rope while placing Sabu on a chair. Kasai would end up getting a barbed wire bat and setting it on fire, but as he goes to swing it, Sabu ends up moving out of the way, and he ends up getting the bat, and he hits Kasai with it. And obviously, like the bat having just been on fire, it burns him. Sabu ends up doing a diving leg drop, sending Kasai through the table. It's actually an awesome spot. How far Sabu's able to still jump off the top rope. And then Sabu ends up tossing a chair at Kasai's head, just throwing it right in his face pretty much. And then at the top, he tosses him he ends up putting a barbed wire bat on him and then hits a moonsault to end up getting the win over Jun Kasai. And I mean, Jun Kasai obviously probably still wouldn't beat Sabu in a match today, but back then, I mean, he still was considered kind of a young boy, especially compared to Sabu. But I'm sure this was a dream match for him to take on Sabu, who's at a legend status at this point. And like I said, there's the FMW versus New Japan theme, and that's first match is Kendo Kashin, who's a New Japan junior heavyweight in the late '90s, mask guy. He's worked a lot of IGF of Inoki last couple years. He takes on Chakoba Mukai, and I mean, but this is Chakoba Mukai's like pretty much his swan song with the Fuyuki Army group, and just hanging out, being with this group as he's about to become an IWA Japan wrestler. Chakoba ends up laying some kicks on Kashin, and he ends up setting him up for like the grinding spot where he looks like he's humping the wrestler. He has him set up on his crotch. He's about to like do a suplex, but Kashin would end up turning it into a front neck lock, and he would end up making Chakoba Mukai tap out in just a little over 5 minutes. So nothing of a match really. Masato Tanaka and Yoshihito Sasaki take on Shinjiro Otani and Tatsuhito Takaiwa. Again, this is really a 0-1 match, but hey, Tanaka and Sasaki, they've left the 0-1 group. They're, part of now the FMW group. So again, in a way, this fits that FMW versus New Japan theme because Tanaka and Sasaki are former FMW wrestlers. Otani and Takaiwa are former New Japan wrestlers. And anyway, because even in a 0-1 where all the guys are 0-1, the New Japan team still ends up winning. But Sasaki ends up hitting a German suplex on Takaiwa, and then he comes back and he hits a lariat. But Otani would end up delivering a missile drop kick and sending Masato Tanaka out of the ring, and Takaiwa would end up finishing off Sasaki with the lariat. And so, like I said, the New Japan team defeats the FMW team even when it's a 0-1. All the guys are 0-1. And then Mr. Gannosuke takes on Shiro Kashinaka. That's an old New Japan wrestler as well, who had started working for World Japan around this time period. Kashinaka, has more. He's been around since the early 80s, so he's going to have a lot more seniority and everything. But I mean, his best days are over. But I mean, Gannosuke grew up loving New Japan. He probably, or New Japan and All Japan in the early 80s. So I'm sure he didn't mind doing the job, but it was just, at this point, all the New Japan guys are going to win. Anyone that has more seniority is going to win. Anyway, so this match is okay. Gannosuke tries, but Koshinaka is not. Like I said, he's just not at that level anymore to have like this great match. They do a lot of brawling outside the ring. Gannosuke ends up throwing him into a guardrail, and he starts laying out Koshinaka with a chair. Well, Koshinaka ends up coming back into the ring, and they would end up doing like this dueling chair spot that the FMW wrestlers would always do. Koshinaka would end up tossing Gannosuke back outside the ring into the crowd. They brawl in the crowd some more. Gannosuke would end up getting back in the ring, and he would try for a flying drop kick, but he ended up missing it. And then Koshinaka ends up going for a power bomb. Gannosuke would turn it into a Gannosuke clutch, but Koshinaka would kick out, and then Koshinaka would pick up Gannosuke and deliver a samurai driver for the clean win. And again, it's just going to be. Hey, we're gonna put all these guys in all these old New Japan guys to help draw this show. Show didn't even draw, and hey, as a result of getting these guys on the show, we got a job to all of them, and that's what this was. Mr. Gannosuke was a better worker at this point, and it was just a shame that he, again, I'm sure he didn't mind jobbing because Koshinaka has 10 plus years more experience than him, but at this point Gannosuke was just such a better worker, and Koshinaka just dragged this match down, and like I said, there's just a lot of brawling in the crowd. Shinya Hashimoto, he ends up taking on Mama Sasaki. Hashimoto, like I said, his just shoulder is killing him at this point, but he's on the show. He's gonna teach the young boy Mama Sasaki how to have a match, and it's pretty much just Hashimoto just laying hard kicks to Mammoth the whole time. Mammoth would end up doing a Mammoth home run. He sets the chair over Hashimoto's head, swings the chair, and he hits Mammoth he ends up hitting Hashimoto over the head with it. Hashimoto barely even sells it. He doesn't drop to the ground or anything. And then Hashimoto ended up just striking Mammoth with just such hard kicks before putting Mammoth Sasaki away. So Hashimoto really didn't do that much here. Like I said, his shoulder is really banged up. Semi-main event is, before the semi-main event, Kaoru Fuyuki comes to the crowd, comes into the ring with Fuyuki's music and everything, and she announces that this is the last Fuyuki Army show. This show was a bust financially. The last show, just the last couple months, it'd been losing money. Koto Fuyuki put away a year's worth of money to save to continue this promotion going, and now it's been a year, and Kaoru Fuyuki, she has no real loyalty to these guys, past of what Koto Fuyuki had asked for her. So it's been a year. This promotion's not making money anymore. They're losing money. This show was a huge bomb. She's washing her hands. I think there was also something behind this decision. I'll go over here in a second. About her closing down the promotion, but anyway, semi-main event is Tetsuhiro Kuroda against Satoshi Kojima. Kawasaki Stadium being such a big, large area, Kuroda can do a long-running distant lariat on Kojima. Kojima would end up. It's pretty much like this spot fest of just this lariat exchange between the two. Kojima would end up, or Kuroda would end up trying for a lariat. Kojima would end up ducking it and hitting the Koji cutter. Kuroda would end up coming back and trying for another lariat. And then Kojima would end up grabbing him like he's going to do a suplex. Well, Kuroda goes low and does a Samson clutch, and then he hits a Shining Wizard. This match, like I said, is probably the first match where, hey, this is a good match. Okay, the crowd actually starts waking up for the first time in the show to this match, the semi-main event. And they're starting to, okay, come on, Kuroda. They're into this match. Okay. And then Kuroda ends up going for a lariat, but Kojima would counter, and he hits a lariat, and he gets the win over Kuroda. And like I said, the crowd kind of started waking up. They had been dead. They'd been cold the whole time. It took the semi-main event. And again, New Japan has defeated FMW. And then the main event is Kentaro Kanemura and Hito against Riki Choshu and Tomohiro Ishii. No exploding barbed wire, no death match or anything like that. Right away, Kanemura goes after Choshu, but Choshu would end up they brawl and outside the ring, and Choshu ends up throwing Kanemura in the guardrail. Choshu would end up hitting Kanemura with the chair. He's smashing Kanemura with the chair. He ends up Choshu would end up undoing the turnbuckle. So it's like an unprotected turnbuckle guardrail. And unprotected turnbuckle, and he ends up smashing Kanemura's face into it. So Kanemura starts bleeding, and Kanemura, he's famous for bleeding a lot. He's got such giant scars on his forehead. Well, this is one of those times where his face is completely covered in blood. Eventually, Ishii and Kanemura would start going at it until Hito would come in and smash Ishii in the face with a chair. Kanemura would then slam Ishii through a table, and then Kanemura would grab the broken board from the table and start smashing it over Ishii. Hito would come in and he would end up kicking Ishii low. Ishii would end up making a hot tag where he would end up making a hot tag with Choshu, who just dominates pretty much against Kanemura and everything. And then eventually Ishii would come back in, and Choshu would end up putting Kanemura in the Scorpion Deathlock while he's in, and Hito would end up having to make the save. And Hito would end up having to make the save by smashing the chair over Choshu to finally get him to break the move. The big spot of the match is Kanemura smashing the broken table over Choshu's head. So Kanemura comes back, and he, that's the big spot that Choshu's taking. Is he'll take a broken table smash to the head. And eventually Ishii would end up coming in, and Kanemura would kick him low and then roll him up with the Samson clutch for the win. So finally, after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at sixth match, The FMW team has defeated the New Japan team. The Apache Army has defeated the the World Japan team. This was the politics also of like, okay, we're going to have this match. It's not going to draw very well. Ishii, probably Hashimoto and Choshu might have done better. We could have possibly had that match, but if we had Choshu and Hashimoto, we were going to have to lose again. And so the big capper here is the Kanemura Hito team, the Apache Army, win the main event so that they can celebrate to end the show. Everyone comes to the ring. The entire Apache Army comes to the ring, and they do the Team No Respect dance. And then Fuyuki's music plays. And like I said, Kanemura is just covered in blood here. But this was the last Fuyuki Army show. This was actually pretty much, in a sense, the end of FMW as a legitimate promotion, the sub promotions and everything, the follow up of FMW closing down. This was kind of the end of it. And, at the very least, I didn't like this show. The Kuroda Kojima match was good. Kanemura match was okay. The crowd was kind of dead throughout. I wouldn't say this was a symbol of what the Fuyuki Army was, but at the very least, the ending was all the Fuyuki Army guys in the ring together, one last time, kind of as a goodbye, in a sense, to FMW and the independent promotions that kind of had joined together with the group since the Apache Army was created.
All right. So that's going to take us now really quickly. So what are the current ideas? Does anybody have any urge or plans or anything to keep this going?
No. Well, okay. So yeah. Sorry. Kaoru Fuyuki, I was going to make mention, she, pulled away from this group around this time period because she was dating Shinya Hashimoto. It wasn't really known, and they would come public later in the year, but at this point, it's just kind of hush-hush. But Kaoru Fuyuki and Shinya Hashimoto are together. Hashimoto has left his wife for her, and they're talking, there's issues with Hashimoto and 01 at this point, and they're talking about starting up their own promotion. Hashimoto leaving 01 and Fuyuki helping him, now that they're living together and stuff. So that is why she's kind of pulled out. And again, like, she had no real loyalty to the Fuyuki Army and stuff. Hey, my husband that passed away, he put away this money to keep this promotion going for 1 year. It's been a year. We lost money. I have no reason to keep this promotion going. So and she doesn't really know wrestling or anything. What she was doing. But like I said, she had talks with Hashimoto about starting his own. So, that's where her loyalty now is. Or possibly putting any money into that is through Hashimoto and everything. So, anyway, that is why, Fuyuki Army closed. And again, that's just me, what I think. I know that Fuyuki and Hashimoto had talked about starting up their own promotion. Now whether she really closed down the promotion because of that, again, that's just my guess. Now, as far as ideas is keeping up the promotion, Kanemura is going to look for sponsors to start up his own promotion to keep this going. He's gonna hold a show in July where he's gonna put up his own money, and in the meantime, he's looking for sponsors to start up a promotion that can run Korakuen Hall. They're never gonna run Kawasaki Stadium again. There was never a wrestling show at Kawasaki Stadium after May 5th, 2004. But hey, I want to keep my friends. I want to keep a job for my friends. I want to, and hey, there's still a fan base here, even though a lot of the shows were losing money. Go back just 2 months to March 2004. That crowd was so hot. There's still a passionate fan base here. We just need to keep them coming each time. And so that's Kanemura feels like he can bring that audience in, but without Koto Fuyuki's wife. And so Kanemura right now, the plan is for him to look into starting his own promotion.
All right, so that's going to take us to the Hustle Show on May 8th, also in the Yokohama Arena.
All right, so this show is going to be kind of like the second, the March show. It's going to be something similar. It's going to be Kanemura, Mike Awesome and Cebu against Masato Tanaka, Tetsuhiro Kuroda, and Tomoaki Hanma in a Dynamite Hardcore Hustle match. And pretty much the stip to this match is every couple minutes, there's going to be a countdown, and there's going to be a weapon after 3, 2, 1. Then there will be a weapon appear, and the wrestlers can use it. So in this match, Sabu right away sets up a table, puts Kuroda on the table, and he ends up doing a diving leg drop on Kuroda, sending him through a table. Hama would then grab Kanemura and deliver a Hurricane Rana off the top turnbuckle to the outside, with Kanemura sliding off the table completely. So he misses the table again, ends up sliding off the table, off the ramp. Tanaka would end up taking that table and setting up it in the ring and delivering a Death Valley bomb on Kanemura through the table. The first weapon to be used or to appear would be a guitar that Tanaka would end up grabbing and hitting Mike Awesome with. Kuroda and Tanaka then are, they're brawling with Kanemura when the next weapon to appear is a bicycle. Well, Hito, who's accompanied the Kanemura team, he ends up going over to grab the bicycle. He ends up getting on the bicycle, and he rides it over to bring it to Kanemura. Well, while he's riding the bicycle, he gets met with a lariat by Kuroda. And so Kuroda has knocked Hito off the bicycle. Kuroda picks up the bicycle. He gets on it, and they lay Kanemura and Hito on the ramp. And Kuroda's supposed to ride over both Kanemura and Hito with the bicycle. Well, that doesn't really work, as the bicycle doesn't do a really good job over riding over a body, so Kuroda kind of falls off the bicycle as a result. The next weapon is a trash can that Tanaka ends up putting over Kanemura and Sabu's head, and then Hama ends up climbing up the top rope and delivering a flying drop kick, and drop kicks both Kanemura and Sabu with the trash can over their head. The next weapon would be Giant Silva, so you have a human being now as the weapon. He's coming to the ring. Mike Awesome would end up setting up an awesome bomb with Hama. He awesome bombs Hama off the apron through a table. And then Giant Silva would end up choke slamming Hama, and then Sabu would end up doing a dive on Tanaka outside the ring, and then Mike Awesome, he would set up a power bomb. He'd try to do a power bomb on Hama off the top rope, and this is scary because he completely screws it up, and you just see Hama just drop down to the mat, and that was a scary spot where he could have ended up seriously injured. They end up trying to redo the spot this time with Kanemura holding up Hama's head so that that Awesome could end up successfully sending Hama through the table, and so Mike Awesome would end up getting the win over Hama. So the Mike Awesome, Kanemura, and Sabu team get the win. The other match on this show is Cactus Jack against Kawada. And this is, again, Hustle's willing to pay a lot of money to bring in some top guys. On this show also, they had the Outsiders lose to Shinya Hashimoto and Naoya Ogawa. But this match is for the Triple Crown title that Kawada currently holds at the time. And this match is pretty much just Foley willing to get his ass beaten by Kawada the whole time. And Kawada is just laying him out with kicks. And, there's not even that much of a match. It's just Foley, Cactus Jack just getting kicked, the crap kicked out of him by Kawada before Kawada would get the win. And Cactus Jack, or McFoley, would actually need a wheelchair afterwards. He would need to be wheeled through the airport and everything back to fly back to America. He was in such bad shape after Kawada just laid these stiff kicks at him.
I had a question about that. So during the match, he pulls out, Foley pulls out the Mr. Sacco and does the Sacco gimmick, and Kawada just has no part of it and starts kicking the shit out of him. Was that all planned, or was there any kind of Kawada not wanting to do it?
I would imagine that spot was planned. Kawada's not going to Kawada's not going to let Sock go down his throat at this, or anything like that. I think that was planned. I don't think Foley knew, holy crap, Kawada is going to lay stiff as hell kicks at me to where I can't walk afterwards. That, I would imagine, was the one thing he wasn't expecting.
Okay, so going on to some sad news. I'll just let you go over what happened on May 18th, 2004.
Sambo Asako would end up passing away. I talked about it a couple episodes ago, how he had severe, extreme case of diabetes. He had lost his leg. He had actually lost sight in one of his eye at the end. So he was in really bad shape, and just this, he was only 40 years old, but the diabetes would, take him. And when he was working in FMW in the 90s with Onita and stuff, he was a very big guy, a chubby guy. At the end, Onita would bring him back at the end. He was skinny, very, very skinny. And I have to imagine he was just not healthy. The diabetes is just slowly killing him. And like I said, he only made it to 40, and he was really bad shape at the end. Hayabusa would make a comment about him dying, just making mention that he was a very funny person. He was really kind to the young boys at a time where not many people were kind to young boys. Senbo Hisako was established at that time when Hayabusa was starting up in FMW, but he was very kind to the young boys unless he was playing a prank on them. So he'd mess with them and stuff, but he was nothing like Tarzan Goto or Onita, where it was just, you're nothing. You're just a young green boy. You're nothing. Senbo Hisako was a very kind individual. So it was a very sad case, and he was very close with Onita, and Onita would end up holding a memorial show later this year for him.
Okay, so that's going to take us to the World Japan Show on May 27th.
So this is going to be the continuation of the World Japan Apache Army feud. This is at Korakuen Hall. It's going to be Riki Choshu, Tomohiro Ishii, and Takashi Uwano taking on Kanemura, Gannosuke, and Hito, and Jintaro. And I mean, this match isn't taped or anything. World Japan had lost their deal with getting shows taped, or at least every show taped on Samurai wasn't the case. Kind of, they're at the same point as what the Fuyuki Army kind of was, where not every show's taped, some are, type thing. And that's a sad cry from what they were a year ago, where the World Japan could run Yokohama Arena. But anyway, this match, is, like I said, not taped, but it ends up Ishii would end up pinning Hito with a brain buster, and to continue this feud, the Apache Army would end up attacking Choshu, and like I said, this is actually Mr. Gannosuke was a big time Choshu fan. This was his one and only time really to face off against Riki Choshu, but the Apache Army would attack Choshu afterwards, and they'd spray paint on his back after the match. They'd spray paint Indy to humiliate Choshu. So Choshu has to walk back with spray paint all over his back. So this is, the Apache Army's going to lose, but, they're going to get their heat back by humiliating Choshu, kind of like that NWO spray paint style. And this would actually end up being the very last time that Kanemura and Mr. Gannosuke unknowingly would end up teaming up for the rest of their careers.
All right, so that's going to take us to June 14th. We haven't talked too much about it, but we've got a show from WWS.
So this was the Mr. Pogo group I talked about last episode. They don't have TV, but they're Mr. Pogo was really on good terms with the Occupation of Indies host, so they were more than happy to not only show highlights of their shows, but they would do entire segments on Mr. Pogo and this promotion to get any type of notoriety. I mean, it's a local indie promotion, but they had some really cool matches, and they actually bring in Mitsuhiro Matsunaga for this show, and so he takes on the Black Dog, which is a WWS mask guy, and it's a fish hook death match. There's not really, they have the fish hooks around the ring or around the ropes, and I don't know why they did it, because Matsunaga tries to use the fish hooks on Black Dog, but like I said, he's a mask guy, so it doesn't really have the same effect when you can't see the guy's face. But eventually Matsunaga would powerbomb Black Dog through a barbed wire board, and he'd get the Scorpion Deathlock, and he would end up winning pretty easily. This was just a favor for Pogo to buy Matsunaga. I mean, this was like the first time Matsunaga had worked in a couple years, I believe, also. And then the main event is Mr. Pogo, Gran Hamada, who obviously, Michinoku Pro guy. He started up with Mr. Pogo in the New Japan Dojo in 1972. He worked a lot of WWS. So it's Pogo, Hamada, Senor Isizaki, the name of the city, and so that's this mask guy is named after, and they're taking on the Great Sasuke, the Wolf, another mask guy, and Chaba Nigger, and that is Masayoshi Motegi, who is he's a masked wrestler. Anyway, the Black Wolf would end up cutting Mr. Pogo open with a knife right away, and then Mr. Pogo would end up pile driving Sasuke on a chain, and this is Mr. Pogo's revenge on the Great Sasuke for September, when they were feuding over the whole Onita exploding barbed wire match. Mr. Pogo would end up blowing fire on Sasuke, and Mr. Pogo would end up grabbing Chabaniger and forcing him to pretty much putting the chain over his throat and throwing him over the top rope, and the referee would stop the match from the Mr. Pogo win. So Mr. Pogo team wins. So these are something like where it's just, these are interesting little small indie promotions that not too many people know about, and it's just kind of a cool thing to, see, hey, a fishhook match, or Mr. Pogo and Great Sasuke in front of like 100 people brawling all over the building and stuff like that.
Okay, next point is going to be Mr. Gannosuke. He had a press conference on June 15th.
So, Mr. Gannosuke, I made mention a little while ago that he was him and Kanemura are no longer teamed together after for the rest of their careers, and they were a very well-known tag team back and forth, for the last couple of years. And Mr. Gannosuke holds a press conference stating that he is leaving the Apache Army. The WMF and Apache Army are splitting up completely. Gannosuke is going to now be willing. He's going to work the June tour that the Apache that he was booked with World Japan through the Apache Army. He's going to work that tour, but he's only going to be in matches. They're going to switch the cards around, and he's only going to be in semi-main event matches where he teams up with like a Goemon or a Mama Sasaki, WMF guys. The original card had him teaming up with Kanemura. He wants nothing to do with Kanemura at this point. Now, this is the $1 million question that I have probably been. I don't get asked about it that much anymore, but around this time period, I was asked this all the time. What's the deal with Kanemura and Gannosuke? What's their issue? Something happened. They are, and I have asked everybody about this because there was huge heat. They did not want to be on the same show together, and they were not on the same show for 4 years. In a sense, Gannosuke was blackballed by Kanemura because Kanemura was working with all the top promotions at the time. He was, and I don't know if Gannosuke was going to get those bookings anyway, but as a result, Kanemura's working with 01. Kanemura's working with Choshu. Kanemura's working with New Japan, I guess through Choshu. Kanemura's working with Big Japan. So Gannosuke now is left open to work with Tatsumi Fujinami's Tradition promotion that wouldn't start up until like 2006, 2007, like 3 more years. So Gannosuke at this point is only going to be able to work WMF or the smallest of indies. Now, like I said, this is the $1 million question. What happened? And like I said, I've asked everybody, including Gannosuke and Kanemura. I asked Gannosuke 5 years ago, what happened? Like, and it's something where they don't want to talk about, obviously, because Gannosuke just said, I asked him in 2013, he goes, we're good now, don't worry about it. And then that was 2013. I asked him again, hoping that he had forgotten that I asked him originally 5 years earlier in person. I asked him in an interview I did online, and he just said, we're good, I don't know what you're talking about. So Gannosuke does not want to talk about it. I asked Kanemura in the interview that I did with him in December, what happened with you and Gannosuke? And Kanemura and Gannosuke, I never felt comfortable enough to no, what are you talking about? Talk to me. I'm not in that relationship with Gannosuke. I feel a little closer with Kanemura, having met with him, hung out with him for a little while, in the interview and stuff and everything. And I asked him, and I was video chatting with him when I did this interview with him, and he puts 2 fingers up like an X and is like, no, bad. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, he wasn't going to tell me. And so I'm kind of trying to bringing it up again. And he just goes, what I'll tell you is Gannosuke was only married for 1 week. And I'm like, what does that have anything to do with it? And I'm like, but what does that have to do with you and Gannosuke not being, whatever happened? And he goes, Gannosuke was only married for 1 week. So, because Gannosuke, according to Kanemura, Gannosuke married a very young woman last year, and the marriage only lasted a week. But so nobody knows. Again, I've asked everybody. I asked Hayabusa. Hayabusa goes, I don't know, but all I can tell you is what probably really happened was Kanemura is just a jerk, and Gannosuke just got sick of it. And just going back to FMW and Kanemura and Gannosuke, Kanemura and in the interview in 1997, right, because Kanemura and Gannosuke were both heels, the Wing Group and the Funk Masters of Wrestling. They didn't really interact too much. Well, around the time period of Zen starting up in 97, there was a match, Onita and Kanemura versus Gannosuke and Oya. And Kanemura felt like Gannosuke wasn't bumping enough in the match. And so they're out with Jado and Geto at the bar afterwards, and this is in the Kanemura interview. And Kanemura's going, Gannosuke, why won't you bump? And Kanemura's like, Gannosuke's like, shut up. Kanemura goes, well, no, tell me, why won't you, bump? Why aren't you doing any bumps? And, Kanemura is someone that's bumped like crazy. He's taking exception to Gannosuke kind of trying to take it easy in a match. Gannosuke's just like, shut up. I don't, and ends up getting into a fight at the bar in, where Jado and Geto are having to pull them apart. And so that's before Team No Respect and working together and teaming up and becoming this great tag team. There was never, a great relationship between the two. Kanemura even stated, I like Gannosuke, but he doesn't like me. So there's, and like I said, I talked to Hayabusa about it. Hayabusa just goes, it's probably Kanemura being a jerk. And I go, so are you friends with, did you like Kanemura? No, he's a jerk. So, again, there's something specifically that happened that they are not willing to talk about. Again, they wouldn't work together for 4 years. I was friends with a wrestler that had dinner with Gannosuke one time, and Kanemura's, and this is in 2004, around this time period, and Kanemura's name gets brought up, and it's just awkward silence. Gannosuke just wanted nothing to do with Kanemura. So, like I said, I've asked everybody. Nobody really knows the answer because Kanemura and Gannosuke do not want to tell what happened. But something happened between the two where Gannosuke goes, I would rather just work the WMF than ever work with you again, Kanemura, at this time. Again, they didn't work together for 4 years as a result of whatever happened.
So I got to ask, is that a shoot that he's no longer married?
Yeah, that's a shoot. Now, he even admitted that he was no longer he admitted that he was divorced. He got married in February of last year, and he announced on Twitter, like at the end of the year like November, December, it pains me to admit this, but my marriage didn't work out. So he admits he got divorced, but obviously that was been 10 months later, and that's what I was under the impression, okay, I guess he, made it a couple months or so. Kanemura goes, it only made it a week when I was talking to him. And that's all he would say, and it had something to do with it. Again, you can draw your own conclusions what exactly it was. But yeah, he definitely was only married for, I'm going to believe that he really was only married for a week, according to Kanemura. And Gannosuke admits, like, he's 50 and she's 25, and he admits, like, the age difference was just too much and they should never have gotten married. But anyway, so that Kanemura is definitely, at least telling the truth in the fact that they got married, that they got divorced shortly after getting married.
All right, so that's going to take us to one of the final World Japan shows we're going to talk about is going to be on June 21st.
So the main event of this show is Riki Choshu and Tomohiro Ishii against Kanemura and Hito. This is a rematch of the Kawasaki Stadium show. And pretty much right away, the Apache Army interfere. Kanemura, Shimoda, Jintaro, Sasaki, they all end up attacking Choshu, and they all end up covering Choshu with Hito counting the three as if that's a win. That doesn't count, obviously. Well, then the World Japan team comes in, Choshu, Ishii, Yaguchi, and Iwana. They come in and they make a match again, so it's Apache versus World Japan. Choshu would end up hitting a lariat, and then he ends up grabbing a chair and just attacking Kanemura with it. And then Yaguchi would end up hitting a powerbomb on Hito for the win. And so the World Japan team gets a win over the Apache Army. So that's what this feud's going to be the rest of the year pretty much. It's going to be Choshu and World Japan against Apache Army with Gannosuke no longer a part of the group.
All right, now one person who's been pretty absent from this is Hayabusa. So I got to ask you, how is he doing?
So, just going back to the WMF situation, I talked about that last episode also, where Hayabusa was struggling financially, and what he was expected was he was supposed to get paid by WMF for touring and doing radio interviews, and the Yamada did not pay Hayabusa. Well, now that the WMF is Yamada is it's pretty much slashing WMF's budget and everything and restarting the promotion. Hayabusa's going, wait, where's my pay for like going to Sapporo to do a radio interview? I'm only getting paid for the shows that I appear on. That's it. Like, where's my travel? I had to go take a train to Sapporo and to Kumamoto and stuff. These are costly, and then you're supposed to pay me. No, I'm not paying you. Sorry. So he ended up screwing over Hayabusa financially, where Hayabusa felt very, bitter feelings towards Yamada. And so, like I said, Hayabusa, I talked about last episode. Hayabusa is struggling financially. He's living life at his home with his wife, and she's taking care of him, and just a lot of bad things, obviously, and they're financially strained. And there's one day where she's washing his hair. He's sitting there, and she's shampooing his hair, and she is so quiet. And Hayabusa goes, "What's going on? Why aren't you talking? Why are you quiet?" "Nothing. Don't worry about it." "No, what's going on?" And Hayabusa felt the conflict. There were issues. There were issues while they were, before his accident, and honestly, and Hayabusa admits this, he cheated a lot on her throughout his entire time they dated. And I knew this prior to. I knew this in 2000. I knew a guy. It was in Japan. Said, and maybe he was making it up. I trust him. He told me in 2000 I was at a hotel with the FMW guys, and Hayabusa was totally just hitting on this girl in the lobby of the hotel, like in plain sight with the boys right there and stuff. And Hayabusa. And also after Hayabusa passed away in 1993, he went to Mexico. After he passed away, his Mexican girlfriend contacted me. And, was telling me I still love him. And, we were together and, while he was in Mexico for a year, and I was his girlfriend. And Hayabusa tells the story of he was lonely and, missing Harumi, his his girlfriend at the time, his, soon eventual wife, and mother of his children. And anyway, so he obviously was cheating on her throughout the relationship, throughout the marriage. And Hayabusa admits that. And he goes, a great shame to admit that I cheated on her hundreds of times throughout. And Hayabusa's wife was always upset, going, "Why are you okay, you're touring with the guy on the at FMW and stuff, but why aren't you here on the days you're not touring and stuff?" So there was always issues. She kind of had a sense what was going on and everything. And so now we're at a point where he's a financial burden on the family, and he's done all that in the past. At least he was making money and stuff, and she's shampooing his hair, and he's going, "What's going on?" And she goes, "I wish you would have just stayed at the hospital." And that breaks Hayabusa's heart. "I wish you would just I wish you were just living still away from us." And so breaks Hayabusa's heart, and Hayabusa and Harumi decide on getting a divorce. Hayabusa goes, "I'm not going to be a burden on this family. I'm not going to be and so Hayabusa would end up moving out of the house. He would get an apartment close by. He'd still see his children every so often, close enough, but he didn't see them every day anymore, and they didn't grow up being around him. And and he stated, the accident, I actually felt like that was my karma for cheating on my wife so much." And so he feels like all this is, as a result of what he was as a wrestler, what his lifestyle was, and this was his, he felt like this was his payback for all the horrible things he did to her. And now, she has to know about it. Like I said, if I had an idea about it, I have to imagine she knew about it and why she was so upset that, he's gone half the time. And then when he's home, he's gone drinking and stuff, going out clubbing and everything. And so, like I said, there was always issues there, and now he's in a wheelchair, and you know, it's difficult. And so, you know, she let her frustrations out, and they, I mean, and that's Hayabusa's story. I've been told certain other things where they were on very bad terms. We'll go over in a future episode. Obviously, they still loved each other, but you know, she was very upset at him, and the divorce wasn't a friendly divorce. But Hayabusa stated, you know, he still loved her, and he cried every week thinking about her.
Okay. Not to belabor the point, but Kokoball Mukai was arrested again.
Yeah, so this time, you know, he got bailed out by Asano. Well, now he's going to him and his manager go. We need to find a girl to you know, do a next porno with. Let's do like an like on the street and stuff type porno. Well, they go looking for a girl, and they find a 17-year-old high school girl, and they get her to agree. And so they film this porno with her, him having sex with her on the street. And whoops, turns out that she's not over, you know, she's not 18, and so Chocoball Mukai again gets arrested, and again Asano from IWA Japan has to bail him out.
All right. Okay. So that's gonna take us into.
Sorry, and just to finalize everything. The first arrest that he had, as far as having sex and filming the porn in the bar, he would actually be acquitted from that, because of it would come out that, hey, the bartender had set them up and said, hey, come do this at my bar. So he actually would get acquitted from any charges from the first arrest that he ended up spending a lot of time in jail for. The second one, I don't necessarily know too much details. I would imagine. I didn't hear anything as far as what ended up happening, but I would imagine that, hey, he did what he did was you know, was illegal, and I'm sure he you know, got a hit in his record and stuff as a result, and probably had to pay a good amount of money.
All right. Yeah. So okay, so that's gonna take us to Kanemura. He ran a show of his own on July 4th in Chiba.
Yeah. This was a Chiba Bluefield, which is where Kaientai Dojo's home building is. And so, like I may mention earlier, Kanemura is going to promote his own shows now, and or at least this show he's going to promote. He's putting his own money into it to get the boys working until he can get a sponsor that will run at Korakuen Hall. So this is just a basic show. I mean, it's a small building. Gintaro and Kuroda have a semi-main event match, and Gintaro, you know, he gets his offense in, but you know, Kuroda's just a bigger star at this point, so Kuroda ends up getting a win with the lariat. And then the main event is Kanemura and Hito against Ryuji Ito and Daisuke Sekimoto, so it's Apache versus Big Japan. Kanemura and Sekimoto would fight on the ramp, and Kanemura would end up sending Sekimoto into the ropes, from the ramp to the ropes, and then Sekimoto comes running back at Kanemura. Kanemura does a leapfrog over Sekimoto, but Sekimoto would end up grabbing Kanemura and picking him up to slam him. Ito would end up doing climbing up the entrance and diving onto Hito through a table. And then Kanemura would end up grabbing that broken table and smashing it over Sekimoto's head, which is actually a real cool spot because Kanemura and Sekimoto's face is just covered in blood, and Kanemura's face is bleeding, and it's a cool image. Sekimoto would end up going to suplex Kanemura, but Hito would end up hitting him with the chair, and Kanemura would end up kicking Sekimoto low and delivering a lariat for Kanemura to pick up the win over Sekimoto. And then Kanemura would then announce next month, August 30th, that the Apache Army promotion was going to run their first show at Korakuen Hall. So then, you know, the next level of promotion, the next promotion following the Fuyuki Army is going to get started up on August 30th.
All right. So okay, so that's going to take us to into August, where now I never knew anything about this until I was reading on your website. There was a movie called Mask de 41. What was this movie?
Yeah, it was called Mass Day 41. It was this movie that FMW did in 2001, like fall 2001. So Hayabusa's in it, you know, perfectly healthy, obviously. And he plays a guy called the Red Falcon. So it's not much of a stretch. It's a masked wrestler. Pretty much what the storyline, I have the movie, actually. It's really hard to follow, obviously just being in a Japanese movie. But essentially it's this guy wanting to prove that he's a wrestler and stuff. And Instead of, like, they use the FMW ring and everything, but the promotion's supposed to be KEWP, and the match actually, so like this have at the beginning of the movie, it's going to be a match between Koto Fuyuki and Jessie Bennett, who is a former Japanese women's wrestler who's an American girl. They're going to have a match when like there's a run in and the heel attacks them and stuff, and the match doesn't end up happening anyway. Like I said, a majority of the match is setting up for the main storyline character. He wants to be a wrestler, so he goes through all the training, and the movie is cool in the sense that you get to watch the FMW. A lot of it's at the FMW dojo, and Gannosuke is in it, and Emi Motokawa is in it, and Hayabusa's in it, and he actually plays like a bad guy in the movie and stuff, and but there's this cool training sequence in the dojo, and Mr. Gannosuke is playing this different character. His hair is all spiked up and stuff. But eventually the ending is the main character taking on the Red Falcon, Hayabusa, in a wrestling match to prove that the main character is willing to be showcase that he's a legitimate wrestler in front of his love interest. And eventually the match would end up being in a double countout. So the main star is like this small little guy, and so the fact that he can go to a no contest with Hayabusa shows, hey, he was able to take Hayabusa to the limit. But at the end, the fans are so pissed off in the movie that the match goes to like a double countout that they start throwing trash in the ring. They're so upset and stuff. But like I said, it is hard to follow, but it is a cool movie to have just for certain like I said, like Gannosuke having this weird spiky hair, and Hayabusa in a different costume, and just training montage in the dojo, and But yeah, it was just a movie that they did in 2001, and then it took till 2004 to air in theaters and stuff like that.
All right, so that's going to take us to the WMF revival, I guess you want to call it. So WMF ran shows on the 7th and the 29th.
So the first show was at the Tokyo Kitazawa Town Hall, which is like a 250-seat building. So, I mean, and they drew about 250 seats, or 250 fans. So, I mean, this is what WMF is going to be. It's going to be a smaller promotion. I also wanted to make mention, when Hayabusa left WMF, he started up his own, he decided he was going to be a musician. How am I going to make money? I'm no longer getting paid by WMF. I gotta start my own career. So he started doing like these small little tours where he would sing, and he was pretty much a professional singer to make money. Also, so Goemon actually left WMF officially, but to join Hayabusa's group, which is called Project Hayabusa. That's like the singing, and Goemon's going to appear at the concerts with Hayabusa. But Goemon also is going to still wrestle for WMF. He's just not going to be a WMF wrestler. And then Onryo and Yuko Miyamoto. Miyamoto, I talked about last episode, the WMF dojo boy who had just gotten started. He left WMF to join Onryo 666. Onryo also is joining 666 officially, so he's not a WMF guy either. He's a 666, his promotion, but Onryo is still going to continue to work for 666. For WMF, but he'll be a 666 wrestler. So on this show, Senmu Yoshida, who was the FMW vice president at the end, in a bunch of storylines, he actually appears on this show. He had a little bit of a kickboxing background. He had been in DDT around this time period, working in the office for them. He has a match against Ricky Fuji. He ends up just getting squashed by Ricky Fuji, like no offense at all. I don't know why he was on the show, and that was the last I ever heard of Yoshida after this. The semi-main event is the main event actually is Mr. Gannosuke and Goemon against Garuda and Seiji Ikeda. Gannosuke ends up putting a Scorpion Deathlock on Garuda, while Goemon puts Ikeda in a sharpshooter. Ikeda ends up diving at Goemon. It's Ikeda and Goemon, and Ikeda does this dive, and he just ends up jacking up his shoulder into the turnbuckle. But eventually, Garuda would end up grabbing Goemon and making him tap out to a single leg crab. And so Garuda ends up getting the win when Black Garuda ends up appearing. and he ends up attacking Garuda with the chair, and he takes off the mask and reveals that it's Soldier. Now, Soldier had been in WMF. He's the FMW guy, Satoru Makata. He had joined WMF as Soldier, and then a year prior, in October 2003, he went to America to wrestle, and so he was wrestling all like for the past year in the IWC promotion out of Pittsburgh. And he had established also a Black Garuda gimmick while working in Mexico also. And so he brought back the Black Garuda mask and ends up, like I said, he tears the mask off and he reveals that he's Soldier. So the next show is going to have Soldier versus Garuda as the main event. And that was at the Saitama Pepe Hall Atlas on August 29th, and they announced 480 fans. So this is their big 2-year anniversary show. The semi-main events, Mr. Gannosuke and Seiji Ikeda. They're kind of pushing Ikeda to be, because at this point they feel like they have no real choice. They got to push the young guys. They got to push someone different. So they push Ikeda. He gives Gannosuke a good fight, but eventually Gannosuke would end up getting the win with the Fire Thunder. And then Garuda would take on Soldier in the main event. Garuda would end up missing an Asai moonsault. And then he ends up, going for a Firebird splash eventually. When Soldier would end up getting up on the top turnbuckle and picking up Garuda and hitting his new finisher called the BUU, which is pretty much like a Death Valley driver off the top turnbuckle. And so Soldier gets the win over Garuda. So this is to establish Soldier now as the top heel of WMF. Like I said, they feel like they need to push some new people, get something different, and because the roster is so thin. And I mean, like I said, at this point, this is a small indie promotion.
Okay, so that's going to take us to the 29th, where there was a show. It was Sapporo Pro, and they had a main event. I'll let you go over that one.
So this was put on by the Soft On Demand company. We talked about that last episode. They were a big-time sponsor for Big Japan. And so this is a promotion, that they put on at a show they put on at the Sapporo Taisen Hall called the Sapporo Pro. I don't know if they ever ran another show, but this was kind of like a Big Japan style match. Now, what's notable about this match is it's Kanemura and Shadow WX against Jun Kasai and Ryuji Yamakawa. Jun Kasai has been with 0-1. He's still contracted to 0-1. At this point, he's sick of 0-1. He hates 0-1. He has bad blood with Big Japan, but he wants to work for he still wants to work for Big Japan. So this is kind of his first match kind of back in Big Japan, even though it's not. It's against Big Japan guys. Kasai would end up doing a second floor dive on Kanemura through a table. Kanemura would end up powerbombing Kasai through a light tube. And then he ends up stacking a bunch of chairs. And Shadow WX would end up finishing off Yamakawa with a brain buster. So like I said, this was just, a match kind of get Kasai's feet wet. It's not a Big Japan match, but it was the very first sign of, okay, Kasai obviously isn't happy with 0-1. He wants to leave, and he wants to work those Big Japan style matches again, because that's what this was.
Okay, and just curious, so when Kasai transitioned from 0-1 back to Big Japan, did 0-1, did they make any play to keep him, or were they like, oh, okay, cool?
No, I don't think so, because 0-1 actually is losing money at this point, too. And, I mean, I talked about Shinya Hashimoto. He's having issues with 0-1. There's a lot of conflict with this promotion at the end of 2004. And 0-1 actually would technically close down. And in 2005, it would be restarted up as 0-1 Max. So at this time period, they're losing money. Kasai, you don't want to be a part of us. Goodbye.
All right. So that's going to take us to, here we go, August 30th. So Apache Pro debuted on August 30th at Korakuen Hall.
So they announced 1,600 fans, which, I mean, it's definitely not a sold-out crowd. If you look at the show, I mean, there's definitely empty seats. But, again, it's just, what Kanemura, I talked about, Kanemura, because I want to create a promotion that has hot fans. It won't sell out Korakuen Hall, but these fans are gonna, this show's gonna be awesome because of the crowd. Just like that March show, how passionate they were. This fan base is like that for this show. These fans are coming to cheer the Apache Army. There's a match Goemon and Onryo. Like I said, they're pretty much freelance from WMF. They're willing to work WMF, but they're freelance workers. They take on Gashigawa, who is dressed up as the Undertaker. going by the name Undertaker Gasaku, and Shoshi Ichimaya. I talked about the guy that dresses up as different wrestlers. He's dressed up as Paul Bear. And they would do these Undertaker spots with Gasaku and the urn, and Gasaku would end up doing a tombstone pile driver on Onryo. Eventually, Onryo is going to get the win with the Onryo clutch over Gasaku, and they end up like taking the urn and just throwing it out of disrespect because Gasaku's playing the role of the Undertaker and just like worshiping the urn. Then there's the semi-main event is Takeo Omori against Tetsuhiro Kuroda. So this is like, let's bring a big name guy in to take on a Apache Pro guy. They end up brawling in the crowd. Omori is getting booed so loudly. Again, this crowd is so passionate again. This is the March crowd again. They've come back for this show. Kuroda would end up hitting his lariat in the crowd, running down the crowd like he usually does. Omori would end up pile driving Kuroda through a table, and then the finishing sequence is Omori ended up hitting his axe bomber to pin Kuroda. So again, it's every time you're going to bring in a big guy, they're going to get the win to help draw the crowd, but I don't know how much Omori really drew for the show. And then the main event, and just going back a little bit, Kanemura and Hito had won Riki Choshu's World Japan WMG tag titles on August 19th after defeating Kendo Kashin and Tomohiro Ishii. So they're now the pretty much like the World Japan tag champs going into this match. The main event is the main event for the show is Kanemura and Hito and Togo, and the crowd is chanting so loudly for them, and they go up against Riki Choshu, Tomohiro Ishii, and Ichiro Yaguchi. And it's funny because the crowd is so passionate for Kanemura and Apache, and then they start, Choshu's music plays, and they start chanting for Choshu, Choshu, Choshu. And then when they introduce Choshu, they start booing him really loudly. Like, we're into this theme and we're into cheering for him, but now that the match has started, he's public enemy number one. And then anyway, Kanemura and Choshu end up going at it, and that would lead to Choshu putting Kanemura in the Scorpion Deathlock. Hito's trying to get Choshu to break it with a chair, hitting Choshu with the chair while he has the Scorpion on. Choshu would end up suplexing Kanemura, and then Ishii would end up hitting Hito with a brain buster. Jintaro would rush in to try and interfere, but he ends up getting clotheslined by Ishii, and then Ishii would end up hitting a brain buster on Hito to put away Hito, and so the World Japan team of Choshu, Ishii, and Iyaguchi end up getting the win over the Apache Army. And then afterwards, the Apache Army does the Team No Respect dance to end the show. And again, I mean, it's nothing of a great match. Dick Togo looked really good in this match actually, but I mean, as far as nothing special, but again, just the crowd and how passionate they are, it was an awesome sight to see.
Okay, so that's gonna now really quickly. So one guy who joined Apache Pro is going to be Takashi Sasaki. He was working for DDT, and we've mentioned a few times that he was always involved in kind of the indie level of the business. So what led to him leaving DDT to join this brand new company?
Well, what happened was Kanemura had a relationship with 01, and so Kanemura goes, hey, if you join up with my promotion, you're working for my promotion anyway while working for DDT. If you join for my promotion, I can get you bookings for 01, and then after the whole 01 thing, like I talked about at the end of the year, 01 kind of changed, and they still had a relationship with Apache, but he actually started getting Takashi Sasaki booked with Big Japan in 2005, and so that's the big thing. So where it's actually Big Japan is paying Kanemura to give and Kanemura gives the money to Sasaki. So it's not just like this freelance booking of Big Japan. Here's the check, Sasaki. It's Sasaki working Big Japan or 01, and then Kanemura paying his Takashi Sasaki is getting his check, and it's everything put together, all his 01 bookings, all his Big Japan bookings, his Apache bookings, it's all comes together into one payday, and that was just more than what DDT was willing to offer him.
All right, and that played a big part in what we're talking about right now. We'll get there. So, okay, going into September, we have a WWS show from September 19th.
So this was an interesting show. It was in the Isizaki Gunma Hotel. So it's in this like ballroom at a hotel. This show, and again, this was an occupation of the Indies highlight they aired. It's Mr. Pogo versus the Wolf, and what it is pretty much there's no ring. Like I said, it's in a ballroom at a hotel. What the stipulation of this match is, because Mr. Pogo's not going to take a bump or even try and cover someone on a mat or anything. So what the stipulation of this match is, they put like this some type of bug. It looked like either a giant roach or a beetle or something like that. They put it in a jar, and they decide whoever ends up getting the jar and opening the jar wins the match. Well, so they put it in on the mat, and they end up brawling outside the hotel like right away, and they end up brawling on the street outside the hotel, and so they're doing like these moves and stuff, fighting in the street, brawling, and there's cars driving by. Like they're like Pogo like does this pile driver on the Wolf in the street as cars are driving by, and then eventually they're fighting over by a bridge, and Pogo would end up throwing the Wolf into the water in the bridge over the bridge, and they end up eventually fighting back into the hotel, where the Wolf, I believe, would end up getting the win. He would end up grabbing the jar and letting the insect out to win the match. So it's pretty much to establish, like I said, Pogo wasn't going to take a fall, and Pogo wasn't actually going to lay on that mat for 3 seconds.
Yeah. All right, so we have a Kanemura produced show on October 10th.
So this was another promoted show by Kanemura. Like I said, he was, he was willing to promote these small little shows at like the Chiba Bluefield and stuff like that. And so on October 10th, they have a show. They announced 250 fans, and Masada's actually on this show. This is kind of the beginning of Masada appearing for the Kanemura, for this group and not just Big Japan. Tetsuhiro Kuroda would defeat Hito in a street fight. Nothing really of a match. And then the main event is Kentaro Kanemura, Taka Michinoku, and Dick Togo against Takashi Sasaki, Jintaro, and Miyawaki. Dick Togo would end up hitting a diving senton, and then on Miyawaki, and Kanemura would end up finishing him off with a Thunderfire powerbomb. So this was just a match. Again, just they sponsors weren't willing to fully go all out yet and have a full tour, and so this is just literally just to have a show to get the boys to at least work once a month. The Apache Army would actually run a tour the next month, but this is just kind of in the meantime, let's have a show.
All right, so the next show is going to be an Onita produced show, which we haven't talked much about him on this show. That's going to be October 23rd.
So I talked about last episode how he retired after losing a loser must retire match against the great Sasuke, and so he wanted to focus on politics and stuff. Well, Sambo Asako had passed away in May, and Onita wanted to have a memorial show for his friend, and they show a video package of Sambo Asako, and they do the 10-bell salute for Sambo, and the main event of this show is Onita and Ricky Fuji and Masaru Toei, an old Wing and FMW wrestler, against Mr. Pogo, Ichiro Yaguchi, and Yase Yaguchi. And this is a barbed wire match, and actually Shoji Nakamaki comes out with the Pogo Yaguchi group in a suit and tie, and he comes into the ring, and he comes in with a chair and goes after Onita, and Onita and him he ends up Onita grabs the chair and smashes Nakamaki over the head with the chair, and then Onita and Nakamaki begin headbutting each other, and it's kind of like the old times, and then Onita would end up getting the win. This is how screwy the finish is. It's the Achi, which is like this. He's this masked wrestler from the Indies, from the southern Japan. He's this masked wrestler, kind of looks like Hayabusa. He ends up interfering in the match, and Onita ends up grabbing him, and he ends up hitting a Thunderfire powerbomb on him, and Onita pins Achi, even though he wasn't even in the match, to get the win. And so again, this is just Onita being Onita, and this was actually like pretty much the only match that Onita would have in 2004, as he was just pretty much focused on politics at this time.
All right, so going into November, we have some WMF shows. The first one is November 6th.
So this was at the Battlesphere. At this point, this is all WMF is going to do. Yamada, the Ling Incorporated, the sponsor, they're willing to put, they're not going to put that much money into the company anymore. You can run your Battlesphere shows twice a month. That's it. We're not going to, promote a Korakuen Hall show or anything like that. So they run at pretty much the Battlesphere in Tokyo is going to be their new home. And what they announce is, so they announce pretty much 2 shows every month up until February, November to February. And what it's going to be is a round robin tournament where 8 wrestlers are going to face off against each other, 7 different times. And also, this they did find a video provider for this, Canal Incorporated, who did motions, publishing, and graphics solutions. They were willing to make this whole tournament into a commercial commercial DVD. WMF had previously never had anything other than Samurai TV. So the main matches here is Mama Sasaki. He defeats Soldier with a 29 years old, but he ends up injuring his knee in the process. So Mama Sasaki and Gannosuke are probably like the favorites. They're the big 2 stars in WMF. So, Mama Sasaki defeats Soldier, but he ends up suffering an injury and can't compete on the next show due to the knee injury. So that's an automatic loss right there. The main event is Seiji Ikeda going up against Gannosuke. They had fought in August previously. Well, now Seiji Ikeda ends up defeating Mr. Gannosuke. Gannosuke just can't put him away, and then eventually Ikeda would end up rolling Gannosuke up for the win. So this is the big upset. Seiji Ikeda gets the win and over Mr. Gannosuke. Then that takes us to the November 28th show at the Battlesphere, and the 2 top matches pretty much are, I guess the main match, because like I said, Mama Sasaki would end up having to forfeit against Garuda, so he doesn't, he gets a loss. The main event here is Soldier against Mr. Gannosuke, and in this match, they're brawling all over, and it's kind of sad and depressing, because there's about, they announced 200, but I'm sure there's 100-something fans, and it's quiet, and it looks cold, and it's just them brawling, and Gannosuke ends up bleeding after fighting in the crowd, and eventually Soldier would just get a clean win over Gannosuke, hitting the BUU, which is that top rope Death Valley driver. So the big thing is Mr. Gannosuke, the big star of WMF, has lost the first 2 matches of the round robin tournament.
Okay. So that's going to take us to a Ricky Fuji show also at the Battlesphere that happened on November 14th.
So Ricky Fuji, around this time, decided he wanted to promote some shows twice a year or so, and actually I talked to him about this. He ran 3 shows. All of them broke even. He didn't make money, but he was able to pay everybody. His first show was in actually March of 2004, where he had an Iron Man match against Minz Teo, who's a really good friend with him, and it's actually probably the best Ricky Fuji match ever. It's a 60-minute Iron Man match. It's really well booked. I mean, the crowd's quiet, but the fact that I could get through that 60-minute match with no problem shows that this is probably the best Ricky Fuji. You wouldn't think a Ricky Fuji match, a 60-minute match with Ricky Fuji, is going to be that great, but it actually was pretty good. Like I said, it was really well booked. Afterwards, after that match, Koji Nakagawa, Goemon, comes to the ring under his old Bret Hart gear, the Bret Hart sunglasses, the pink tights, what he would wear in FMW, and challenges a match to Ricky Fuji at the next show. So fast forward 8 months later to this November 14th show, and Ricky Fuji and Koji Nakagawa have a match, and Ricky Fuji would actually end up getting the win. And I mean, it's not a great match or anything like that, but it's kind of cool to see Goemon back under the Koji Nakagawa, like the Hitman gimmick that he did in the early FMW show, early FMW days. But anyway, Ricky Fuji would end up getting the win, and they would so that would actually set up for another rematch in March of 2005. So again, this is just kind of Ricky Fuji trying his dabbling at promoting, and like I said, he told me that the shows broke even. So I mean, they weren't a success, but they weren't a failure either.
All right. Okay, so that's going to take us into December. We have a couple more WMF shows. We have a show on the 18th, and then another show at the Battlesphere on the 19th.
Yeah, both shows were at the Battlesphere, and so the main matches here are Mr. Gannosuke getting the win over Goemon. He ends up putting him in the Nirvana Strangle to get the win. So Gannosuke now is on the board. He has his first win, and then Soldier gets the win over Akeda with the BUU. And so they're really kind of establishing Soldier here as, hey, he's a top guy of the promotion. And then fast forward to the next day, December 19th, and neither one of these they even announced crowds. So I would have to imagine they did not do very well on these shows. But then on the 19th, they have a big match, Mr. Gannosuke versus Mamasaki. And this is actually an awesome match. They really kind of booked it well. So right away, Gannosuke comes in the ring. Mamasaki throws a chair at Gannosuke. Mamasaki then grabs a trash can and he puts it on Gannosuke's head, and he does the Mammoth home run with the trash can over Gannosuke's head. Eventually, Mammoth and Gannosuke, they start brawling, and I said it's a street fight. They start brawling on the street. Mammoth ends up slamming Gannosuke in the street. Mammoth and Gannosuke, they end up brawling into somebody's house. Second floor, they climb up the stairs on somebody's house, and Gannosuke tries doing like the balcony spot that they do at Korakuen Hall, where you try when you try knocking someone over the balcony at Korakuen Hall and it never ends up working. Well, then they actually do this spot in someone's house on the second floor, trying to knock the guy, Gannosuke trying to knock Mammoth over onto the ground. Mammoth obviously escapes that. They brawl some more in the street. Mammoth ended up throwing Gannosuke in a fence, into the fence on the street, and eventually they end up. Mammoth lays some chairs out. Before that, Mammoth actually takes like a street cone and he ends up hitting Gannosuke over the head with the street cone. And then they get back into the ring, and Mammoth lays some chairs in the ring, and Gannosuke gets up, throws the chair at Mammoth, and then Gannosuke grabs Mammoth and suplexes him on the stack of chairs. Mammoth would end up grabbing a barbed wire board, but Gannosuke would end up kicking Mammoth low and powerbombing Mammoth through the barbed wire board instead. And the barbed wire is like caught up all over Mammoth's body and shirt and everything. He has to actually take off his jacket because he's just tangled up in barbed wire. Mammoth ends up going for a going for a clothesline with the barbed wire all around him, when Gannosuke would end up rolling up Mammoth at the Gannosuke clutch to get the win. So this is Gannosuke's back now. He's won the next two matches after losing the first two matches. And then the main event of this show is Soldier against Garuda. And Soldier's right away pretty much going for a BUU on Garuda, but Garuda would end up reversing it and turning it into a Hurricane Rana. But eventually Garuda would end up getting the Falcon Crash on Soldier, which is like a single leg crab, making him tap out. So Garuda gets the win over Soldier. So it's a lot of it's 50-50 booking at this point. But at this point, with such a thin roster, they're just doing whatever they can to try and make anything interesting.
All right, and then the final show we've got is going to be Apache Pro on December 27th.
So this show wasn't taped. They announced 1,400, which is lower than any show that the Fuyuki Army ever announced. And like I said, not taped. So I only have pictures to go off of. Satoshi Kojima defeated Hito. Kojima bled in this match. He ended up using a barbed wire bat and finishing off Hito with that. And then the main event is Riki Choshu and Tomohiro Ishii against Kentaro Kanemura and Tetsuhiro Kuroda. The big spot here is, Kanemura gets busted open early, and then Choshu ends up putting the Scorpion Deathlock on him, and the entire Apache Army is trying to get him break it off. Choshu won't let go, and eventually, I think Hito ends up hitting Choshu with the chair, but Choshu would eventually put away Kanemura with a lariat to get the win. And so again, the World Japan Choshu team has defeated the Apache Army in a disappointing Apache Army show, in the sense of it wasn't taped, the lowest number, and this is actually the last Apache Army show at Korakuen Hall in the next year. There would not be a Korakuen Hall show in 2005, so it's kind of a depressing way to go out. And again, I didn't see the show, I didn't even see highlights, so I can't really tell you what the crowd was like. But as far as just the show, it's kind of a throwaway show for being the last Korakuen Hall show for the next 16 months. All
right. So that's going to do it for 2004. I've got one last question, not just talking about these companies, but also talking, so WMF, Fuyuki Army, Apache Pro, and then also 01, Big Japan, All Japan, NJPW. What is the overall strength of wrestling at this point? Because I think that 2003, 4, and 5 are probably the real bottoms of the valley, it seems.
Oh yeah. This is the bottom of everything. I mean, Hustle, they're spending a lot of money, but they're not even, I mean, eventually they'd lose a lot of money and have to cut corners and stuff like that. And I mean, every promotion took a hit, essentially, and this was the great, that bubble I've talked about with FMW. It bursted, and this is the side effects. Just every promotion is hurting. Every promotion is not at an all-time low, but they're not doing well. Big Japan is kind of starting to pick up a little bit with Ryuji Ito is the champion, and their 2005 will be a good year for them. I mean, we talked about 2002 being a horrible year for them, but yeah, I mean, at this time, it's a real test to try and make it through these years unscathed. I mean, a lot of New Japan took a big time hit, but obviously they have so much power and so much money that they could survive. Same thing for All Japan. Noah's probably at an all-time high. Actually, 2004, 2005 is probably Noah's peak that they could run the Tokyo Dome around this time period. But every other promotion, they're definitely at an all-time low. And this, like I said, this is kind of the end of FMW as like a group, because now they are two completely separate companies, WMF, Apache, and I mean, Apache's struggling. Things will pick up for them in a couple of years, but 2005 wasn't by any means a great year for them coming up. And I mean, WMF is just protocol, Battlesphere shows, and I mean, even with running, I mean, and Battlesphere again is similar to Shinkiba. Imagine just running Shinkiba twice a month, and you're losing money even running Shinkiba twice a month. You can't afford that type thing. Or your financial backer is losing money. He doesn't want to lose any more money. So yeah, this is definitely the low point. I mean, and I've talked about it before, where hey, it's the 1990s is remembered more than this time period. I feel like I'm going over stuff, when I go over FMW stuff, a lot of people know that. And I feel like going over this stuff, which is years afterwards, and I feel like nobody remembers this stuff because it's just so down everything was just so down, and it wasn't hot, it wasn't something you focused on, and no one really cared about a Battlesphere show or a Apache show at the Chiba Bluefield, stuff like that. So yeah, this is definitely the Japanese economy in general, and just Japanese wrestling is definitely taking a big hit.
All right, so we are recording this on February 9th, 2019. If you want to let people know what's going on currently.
The only thing that I can really do, thing we talked about last episode, but I mean, he is definitely, I mean, if you're gonna believe him, I mean, and he even states like, his knees are so bad off after just the 3 matches that he's had since coming back that and I talked about it last episode, his knees were so bad that he didn't even he retired because of how bad his knees were, that he didn't feel like he could climb up the stairs. And after 3 matches of where he's not even really doing that much, walking around hitting people with the chair or hitting people with bar or with a with a bat or board or whatever, his knees are still so bad that he went to the doctor, and they told him he needs surgery soon, or he will end up living life in a wheelchair. And he said he's gonna still wrestle on the February 11th Stardom Idol show, and he still has to wrestle at the Baba show. He's not gonna miss that. He said he crawled to make sure he attends these shows, but after that he's gonna look into surgery, and one of the options is double reconstructive knee surgery or a knee replacement. And if he ends up getting a knee replacement, it's going to be bad. It's going to be a long time off that he won't be able to wrestle. And so he did say that he still is going to appear at the spring break show. I mean, he didn't say anything about wrestling, but I mean, if he ends up getting a knee replacement, I can't see him wrestling personally. But I mean, Onita's Onita, and I mean, we'll see what exact surgery he gets. 'Cause, I mean, if he gets a lighter surgery, he might be able to wrestle in a month. I don't know, but if he ends up getting the major surgery, I think that the doctors are going to recommend him do, then he's going to be out for the rest of the year probably.
All right, so I've got a plane flight in about 9 hours. I had to go to Tokyo for this Sakuda versus Kasai main event that's on February 10th here. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time they ran a Freedom's title match outside of Korakuen Hall?
Ooh, Oh, outside the Korakuen Hall. I know they ran. I know Takashi Sasaki defended the. Well, that's actually afterwards. So Shinkiba itself, I know Takashi Sasaki wrestled the Brahman brothers for the title in a three-way match in June 2013. I know Jun Kasai won the title in 2014 in Owati, which was it's a big building. It's actually bigger than Korakuen Hall. He defeated Yuji Hino for the title, and then sorry, I'm just trying to ask me on the spot. So I'm just trying to go off memory. And then I know Takeda took on Yuya Suzumu at Differiaki, or not Differiaki, sorry, at Shinjuku Face.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, Shinjuku Face. Yeah, 2015, and that was like a 24-hour pro wrestling show where 24 hours of wrestling took place in that building, and that was the each promotion got a 2-hour block for 24 hours, and that was the Freedom show. So off the top of my head, the 2015 is the last one, but I'd have to do some research or something. But 2015 off the top of my head.
Before we go, I just want to ask you, why do you think they're running this? I mean, why would they? Because, they've got the, okay, so Sakuda is a big Japan wrestler, and, he's made mention to me personally that he just wants to do more higher profile stuff, and when you're in big Japan, it's way harder to punch through that ceiling there, and so he's doing stuff for Freedoms. But still, when they announced a main event singles Kasai title death match for Shinkiba for, like, normal prices, I was very surprised at that.
Well, I got you on a plane to go see it. So,
yeah.
I think it's the draw really is, it's a Shinkiba show where, what was, usually it's a tag match, a fluorescent light, and hey, I've been watching the Freedom shows. Some of the Shinkiba shows actually are better than the Korakuen shows in some ways, because sometimes, and not every time, obviously, but there will be a random Shinkiba show I watch, and the crowd will go like crazy, and maybe it just picks up better at a Shinkiba show than a Korakuen show, but anyway, there'll be tag matches, a fluorescent light tube, and they'll draw 180 fans and stuff. So that's kind of the bar where, hey, as long as we draw a half crowd, that's all we need. But the draw really is like, hey, we know Sakuda's not going to win, but what do you want to see what he's, what's willing to happen? Is he going to do the syringe through his mouth again? I'm sure he will. Will he do something else? So that's kind of the match where how crazy are these guys going to go? It's not just, will Sakuda win the title? It's not that. It's how crazy, what are they willing to do? This isn't going to be just a standard tag match that you see at every Shinkiba show once a month for Freedom. So it is something different. And at this time, Freedoms needs to do something different because they don't run a Korakuen Hall show until March 31st, so it's going to be a little while before they really need to go all out to try and promote a big show.
Well, okay, so that's all I got. I'll just drop my name. My name's Steven. I do the you can follow me on Twitter, INTL Wrestling. And Brett, where can people find you? FMWWrestling.us, where I cover everything, Onita, Freedoms, anything related to FMW, and I also sell DVDs of largest FMW collection of DVDs, as well as I'm willing to sell MP4s where I can email you the file that day. Instead of shipping them out. And then also you can find me on Bahu FMW on Twitter, where I tweet anything anything FMW related or Freedoms related that that hasn't been reported. I'll tweet that out. And then Bahu FMW World on Instagram, where I post pictures from hundreds and hundreds of magazines. I actually organized them all, and I'm pretty sure I have 1,000 magazines at this point. And then also, you can find me on Brett FMW on YouTube, Brett FMW, where I do video. Pretty much put video to all these episodes of the podcast, as well as I just posted a Masashi Takeda career music video that goes about 30 minutes. All right. So with that, we will come back next time for 2005.
You gotta keep them separated.